right. What's good, people? Hope everybody is well. Welcome back. Oh, man, it's been a crazy week. Absolutely crazy week. And I'm really glad to be back here. But anyway, welcome back to the Onyx Report, where we as Black male justice advocates look to uplift Black men and boys using critical analysis. Hope everybody is well. Got a number of people in the house already, which is always good to see. Let me just get this thing set real quick. And we will be off to the races. Got a lot to cover today, but I want to make sure everything is linked up well. All right. So looks like this is going pretty strong. Shout out to Josiah. What's good? Got some early donations coming through, and that's always good to see. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will, so we can continue to bring you this independent Black male thought. So shout out the gate to Guy Incognito. Appreciate that. Says, hope you covered Trump at the NABG. No male reporters asking questions. All right. Got Barry Little in the house. NABG debacle was a missed opportunity and a disgrace. Not a single question on policies and tangibles for Black people in general and Black men in particular. It was all about bashing Trump. All right. Shout out to Barry again. Other donations says, not a single Black male journalist, analyst, or advocate in sight, never send the sisterhood of the Black Gynarchy to do a Black man's job. You know, y'all already covered it. You know the deal. You know, and this is the thing my channel was here for a number of years ago. I just wanted to find a way to get Black men to be more outspoken and give us the language to do so. And brothers are already doing it. Brothers are already doing it. And I can't tell you how glad I am to see it. Shout out to Red Pill Sleeper Cell. Says gifted memberships to the channel, 5 of them. Appreciate that. Inspired Truth. Shout out to you. Says salute Doc in the chat. Shout out to Wrench Turner. Says salute to you as well, good brother. Hope you well. You know, haven't talked to you in a minute. You know, so all of that is much appreciated early support. Please make sure that you continue to do so. You know, as early as you can, because I only ask at the beginning of the show, and after that I don't say much. So here's the link. There's a variety of ways to contribute. You got the Venmo, the PayPal, the Cash App, as you can see on the screen. And of course, the Patreon, where you can become a supporter of both the channel here on YouTube, as well as the Institute for Black Male Studies. And you can become a patron of both, and also be able to participate in live film reviews. And we're going to have a nice one I think you guys are going to like. I'm going to do this week. I will let you know when I post it on the YouTube community tab. I think you guys will enjoy it. So keep your eye out for it, but make sure that you're a patron at least the $10 mark, so you can enjoy and participate in the review we're going to do. So get all the, you know, house business off the table. And last but not least, I guess I should say, if you have not already picked up the book, make sure you do so. Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry by yours truly. Make sure you pick that book up by Routledge. You can pick it up on Amazon. You can pick it up on Routledge or a number of any other sites, wherever you pretty much buy your books. Go ahead and check the book out. And I think it's incredibly important, especially now, right? You know, as brothers are talking about or engaged in debate about this next presidential election, one of the things that we're noticing is that, you know, again, the mic is put in front of Black men's faces, and we're asked, what is it we want? Well, most of my life, what I've seen Black men talk about is what's best for the community overall. Very generic, you know, very abstract. But as I was growing up, I began to notice that, you know, other demographics in the community, from Black women to LGBT, were becoming quite clear about what their political interests were. And there wasn't always a cross-check about whether or not those political interests impacted Black men positively or negatively. We were not a concern. And for the most part, we accepted that, and we just kind of would give these platitudes and general kind of statements about what the Black community needs without any specific view about what politics Black males have. So when we on this channel and a number of others collaborated to ask the question about what Black male political interests are, what policy ideas are specific to our interests, we began to tabulate a list. And as you can see, this book is titled Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry. Well, the solutions are a checklist of policy ideas stemmed from this channel. And it's critical that at this time you become way more familiar with that list. These are not things that I wrote up. This comes from the almost 40,000 subscribers. I think I'm 300 away from 40,000 subscribers. So help me reach my immediate goal of 40,000, and we continue to grow from there. So I'd appreciate that. But these ideas came from Black men here on this channel who proposed what would be, ideal policies for Black males. Currently, we're up to 18 points on the agenda. We'll probably reference it a little bit later when we come to some other things. But this is the time to take the agenda and use it in these conversations, in these pushes for policy. And if people ask you, what is it going to take to get the Black male vote? We have a very specific list of what kind of things it's going to take to get the Black male vote. So no longer are we in the days of, the politician just showing up at the barbershop, shaking your hand and pulling out a bottle of fucking hot sauce out of a bag, and that's supposed to make me think that we're cool. Come on, we got to grow up. We got to move past this. These platitudes, these symbolic performances, I'm indifferent to. I think a lot of Black men are. But again, we haven't talked about Black male interests. We haven't talked about what political ideas are necessary to attract our attention. We're going to get into some of that tonight. So make sure you pick up the book and delve into it from there, so you can be familiar with what it is we're pushing. Now, just to catch you up as far as what's going on over here, I wanted to do this show a while ago, but had a little problem last week where my air conditioner went out. And if you're not familiar with Fresno is desert temperatures. So I've seen it get down as low as 29 degrees in the winter, and it will routinely get over 110, 115 in the summer. So last week was one of those weeks. We were over 110. The air conditioner went out, and my house turned into an oven. And if I would have so much as stepped into my office, I think we might have burst into flames. So it was just repaired yesterday. So we are finally just getting back on track. Man, my house was an oven. It was ridiculous. So just trying to do some catch ups and get some things together so we can get going. Now, let's see here. Oh, I didn't put it up. All right, so let me do this real quick. This is something that for my fellow collectors and nerds, I promised I would give you an update. And this particular one is something you'd have to be an appreciation. You'd have to be an appreciator of the 80s. That's what it would actually take. So that said, let me go ahead. I thought I had prepared this clip, but it wasn't ready. There we go. No, it did not go through the way. All right, that'll do it. All right, so I will do this quickly, but y'all know whenever I pick up a new collector's piece, I have to share it with you, because there's always a few of you in the audience that understand my passion. Addiction is also an appropriate term, but if you're familiar with the 1980s and the version of Clash of the Titans at that time, it was not the greatest movie in the world, but if you were a sci-fi head, you appreciated it for what it was. I was always into things, movies and stuff about the gods and whatnot. So it was really on a lark that I just decided to look up either sword from either the later film that came up in the 2000s with Sam Worthington, and this one with Harry Hamlin playing Perseus. And, as a kid, they even used to play this one in school when they didn't have shit for us to do. So I was always hooked on this. So gotta share it. Latest addition to the collection is the Sword of Perseus. And see that right there. Nice, beautiful little blade. I had to add this one to the collection. Bejeweled handle. I did not add the bejewels on there. They were already on there. But those of you who are, who appreciate the sword collection, I just had to share that. So nice little, collector's piece. Came with the scabbard and everything. And, I'm running out of room for them, but had to go ahead and share it. I don't know if that's going to stay there long. But anyway. Had to show that. So I had to get the Perseus sword. So shout out to those of you who remember this film back in the day. I did not bedazzle the handle, please. I promise you I didn't do it. If you look at the film, the handle, the scap, this all bedazzled already, man. This shit was already there. Anyway, man, I had to share it because I am a nerd. Or I guess it's a geek. I don't know, but I still love the old sci-fi stuff. So, if I come across a rare piece that I like, I'll have to do that. So anyway, shout out to y'all. Appreciation to Barry dropping the information in the chat as usual. Thank you. Let's see here. Here we go. Computer Geek, what's good? Shout out to you. We got Gabriel Meth in the house. Grab Second Gear. What's going on? Red Pill Sleeper Cell. Let me see. Donnie Mac, what's happening? Ahmed, Ron, good brother Malika in the house. Shout out to you. Spain Man, Omari, Prince. What's good? Andre, 420. Black Males, what's up? Shout out to Layman's Journal. Shout out to you. And y'all check the Layman's Journal channel. He just dropped a very interesting piece today dealing with the supporting of Kamala Harris in film in an abstract way. And he actually talked about a film I remembered. I didn't think anybody else remembered. Make sure you check out the Layman's Journal channel. I appreciate that. Shout out to I Am Alpha. What's good? Guy, what's up? Golden Child, Uncle Fire, Mark, what's happening? A ghetto user in the house. Inner Light, we are broadcasting today on Inner Light Radio as well as YouTube, as well as Facebook, as well as LinkedIn and Twitch. I think they want me to have a premium account on X in order for me to continue to broadcast there. I don't think I'm going to. But anyway, shout out to Duran, Josiah, Joes, John Smith, what's up? Shout out to Sir Anthony and Ghetto User for the contributions. Much appreciated. Shout out to y'all at AB Media. Shout out to Golden Child. Says, what would a Kamala Harris presidency look like? I'd say a whole new era of ninjas ain't ish. That's what I think. Guy Incognito. We got Will in the house. Right? Reverend Doctor. Yeah. Tavares. John. Yep. Everybody's pissed about that. No black male journalists from the political party that claims to be inclusive. No big surprise here. The only time that black men matter to Democrats is at voting time. Yeah. And this is a reflection of DEI culture. DEI does not greatly influence or take into consideration black male needs. We are not a consideration. It has become an amalgam of what is considered to be diverse, and diverse does not include us for the most part. The amalgam of it basically is not inclusive of black men. We're in this kind of strange limbo where we're on one end, we're viewed as kind of honorary white men and thus deserving of whatever punishment that heterosexual men, especially white men, get. And on the other side, when we are diverse or a representation of diversity that institutions can claim, there's only a few of us until they can really double down on women, LGBT, and other dynamics. So black men just fall into this amorphous limbo where we're not quite a part of the representation crew, the diversity crew, and at the same time, we're obviously not white men. So we just kind of get overlooked. I think what you guys are describing is exactly that. Passport OG, shout out to you. I hope you're well. Make sure you catch up with the Passport OG channel. Let's see, Jay Baldwin, Guy. There we go. And quite a few brothers in the house. So make sure you hit the like button so we can continue to do what we do. And let me just catch up here. There's a lot of people in the house. Good. So I might actually have some people come up and give your thoughts when we start to delve in. But you know how we do. We got a couple of things that we need to cover. So let me get that going. All right. Let's go ahead and share the screen here. All right. So here we go. Y'all know the deal. This is what we're looking at. Right. Okay. So this is CBSnews.com. Titled the article, Lawsuit Claims Sexual Abuse Went On for Decades at Cook County Juvenile Detention Center. Right. We were talking about this very subject before, and it's continuing. Right. This is in Chicago. This is dated July 23rd, right? Very new lawsuit alleges 193 juveniles were sexually assaulted over decades at a Cook County facility. Suit was filed in Cook County Circuit Court. Right? Nearly 200 people signed their names to the suit as plaintiffs, alleging a systemic failure led to widespread sexual abuse inside the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center. Okay. This is what we're looking at. This is still occurring. Right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because we've been talking about this for a while. But one of the things I did want you to notice, if and when you decide to go through these kind of articles, is they're real hesitant to actually list when they're talking about men, young men at that. Right? But they do kind of talk a little bit about it. But here you have one woman named Shamika. She says, I was abused nearly 2 decades ago. It still affects me to this day. She was in custody in a detention center in 2005. Talks about how she wants to change the world. Now, this is the one sentence where you'll get some clarity on this matter. Total of 156 men and 37 women were among the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. Attorneys said the victims were all between the ages of 9 and 17 when the abuse happened. Right? So here you have underage young men, mostly. Right? It says nearly 4,000 plaintiffs are now attached to the different lawsuits alleging sexual abuse of juveniles in their facilities. Almost 400 cases have now been filed against the state alleging abuse at Illinois juvenile detention centers. Right? So 4,000 plaintiffs, 400 cases, 156 men, 37 women. Why in the world is the title of an article like this, lawsuit claims sexual abuse went on at a Cook County juvenile detention center? If you have, almost 3 times, what is that? I don't know, more than that. Between 4 and 5 times the number of men, or number of males, right? Underage males who've been violated than young underage girls. Why is this article not fixating on the specific experience of young men? See, this is the difficulty we have in talking about the vulnerability of men, even when these young men are underage, even when they're boys under 10 years old, right? We still equalize it. But you can bet if this was 156 women, 37 young men, the article would have been titled Young Women Accosted and Violated at Detention Center. Right? We have this double standard when it comes to addressing vulnerability, particularly sexual vulnerability. And this is even the case when you're talking about underage males. I'm not talking about ignoring the young women that have experienced that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is we have a difficult time taking it as seriously and fixating the attention on the greater number of people when those greater numbers who are experiencing something vile like this are male, particularly black male. Shout out to Officer Faulkner. What's good with you, man? Right? We don't talk about this. We don't advocate for it. We don't push it. And in a presidential year where black men's attention and votes are assumed, but we ourselves are not, really, foregrounded in the discussion, we need to be the ones to foreground things like this. When's the last time you saw a presidential election where they even remotely mentioned the topic of male sexual vulnerability, including underage males in juvenile detention centers? And this can also be, this doesn't even have to be, a detention center. It could just as well be a foster care facility. You think sexual violation doesn't take place there? Ask some young men who've been in foster care what their experiences have been. And then ask yourself, when's the last time you actually saw underage black male sexual vulnerability dealt with in any serious fashion, whether it's foster care, juvenile detention centers, doesn't matter. Hell, even camps, right? When have you ever seen it taken seriously? See, this is one of the reasons, shout out to shout out to Dark Power. Appreciate that cash out. This is when we have to invoke this, because when people ask us, do you have any political issues? Do you have any particular interests that need to be articulated? This is one of many that we have listed in the Black Male Political Agenda. And if you don't know how to find it, just Google Black Male Political Agenda. You'll only find one, but you'll see my name attached to it, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson. Look through it. You will find that we deal with this issue as well. But this is not something you hear coming up. And even when it's reported, it's not. Unless you delved into this article in depth, you wouldn't have known that this is something that young men in Chicago are dealing with nearly between 4 and 5 times more in young women in detention centers. And they're there in greater numbers. So here we go. So this is CBS News. Let's look at how far deep into the article you got to go before they give you some clarity on the numbers right there. Most people today read titles. Right? You got to get to this one sentence, or excuse me, 2 sentences. These 2 short sentences in the middle of the article, buried in, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, at the end of the article. Right? The 4th paragraph from the bottom, just this 2 sentence here. This is how deep you got to get into the article. Find out that we're even talking about males and the sexual vulnerability of young men. We have to push this. So whenever people tell you that Black males don't have any political interests, any separate from anybody else, the Black community is one whole and we just need to operate as a whole. When's the last time you saw the community brought these issues up? Because I haven't. This is just one of the areas that I'm talking about. This isn't even intentional, but I'll show you another one. Matter of fact, while I'm on the topic of talking about issues that are specific to Black males, where's it? There it is. Check this out. Smartnews.com. Mom is told her son has a low IQ after an evaluation, but his teachers disagree. They think he's very intelligent. Right? Now, if I asked the men, since my channel caters to over 99% men, Black men at that, right? If I asked the men, how many of them, while going through grade school, had experiences where their intelligence was underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, or they themselves were mischaracterized, mislabeled, placed into special ed, placed into or given diagnoses that suggest they have difficulty learning, things of that nature. How many Black males can speak to that? Put a 1 in the chat if you can say you experienced anything like that, whether it was you or a child directly related to you. Right? How many Black men can say they've experienced that? Right? How many? And when have you seen such an issue brought up in an election cycle as it relates to Black male political interests? Black boys being mischaracterized, mislabeled, and essentially having their self-esteem completely wiped out below the age of 10 often. Yeah, look at them. Look at all the ones coming through. And that's just a smattering of the people we have in here right now. Right? But this is not a political issue. Really? Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see. I think I was watching this on their phone and it's not going to come up on here. But I wasn't going to do this in the show anyway. It was just on my screen. I wanted to show it. So anyway, but just to show you in terms of that, right? This whole question of young males being listed as having low IQ. But we're going to act like that's not a political issue for Black males. Okay. What about how Black males are treated by law enforcement? But, well, not even just law enforcement, right? This is an interesting one. This is let me see. This is a video that I think you guys might find interesting if you have not already seen it. Now, I've told you before, I've had trouble before playing stuff off of Facebook. So I'm going to need you to tell me very quickly if you can hear it. Let me get it on the screen. Okay. I think I forgot to make sure the sound clip was on. It is. All right. So I'm going to play just a second of it. You guys tell me if you can hear it. Unmute it.
Suspended, facing removal from.
Okay. Anybody give me a 1 if you were able to hear that. I think I still have people giving me 1s from the last question. Okay, I'm just going to assume you guys were able to hear it. This is, for some of you who may not have run across it already, this is a white female judge who actually threatened to kill some teenage Black boys on video, right? So check this out.
Tonight, a state Supreme Court justice suspended, facing removal from the bench after threatening to shoot a group of Black teenagers.
Here she is right here. It's the video. It happened at a house party near Utica in the summer of 2022. body cam video, the stuff you're seeing right here, and report findings from the incident just now being released.
This week, the Commission on Judicial Conduct calling the judge's actions racially offensive, saying she can no longer serve as a fair and impartial judge.
Or they'll be shot on the property.
Well, I'm just saying every day.
I'll shoot them on the property.
Every day.
New video just released capturing State Supreme Court Justice Aaron Gall threatening to shoot a group of black teenagers.
They'll be shot on the property.
Well, I'm just letting you know that
Because
the best case
when they
scenario,
trespass, you can shoot them on the
They
property.
should just come here and just.
No, I'm just saying.
Every day.
I'll shoot them on the property.
The judge was at a high school graduation party at her friend's house when authorities say there was an argument between invited and uninvited guests. A group of black teenagers who received a text invite to the party with the address then arrived, and a fight broke out shortly after.
Kind of split open pretty far.
Yeah, I've been telling him since I got eyes on him that he needs to go get checked out.
He was definitely hit with something.
During the scuffle, the teens lost the keys to their car and couldn't leave the neighborhood, appearing to upset Gall, who wanted the children to leave, but refused to turn over their car keys if she found them.
If the key turns up,
We're absolutely going to throw it in the toilet. You're welcome.
somebody says,
Okay, so this is a judge, right? Had she not done something this egregious, how many would even know that this is something to be considered? So this is a person who's actually sentencing people, right? This is what we're talking about. But how many of you want to bet that when they say black teenagers, we're mostly talking about black males? Let's continue.
officer's coming to pick them up and get them out of here, and I'm going to get his information, and if we
Put
find
him in
the
the back
keys,
of the cop car and let him wait there.
5 law enforcement agencies arrived on the scene during the more than hour-long ordeal, during which the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct said the judge repeatedly invoked her judicial office.
And that's Judge Gall. I'm a judge. I'm telling you, get off the
dude, go wait at the car.
I'm a Supreme Court judge.
I know,
I'm
Judge.
sitting here.
Threatened gun violence,
I'll shoot them on the
No,
property.
no.
If I have to clear it out, I will.
Yep. And shout out to Dead Set. What's good with you, man? He says, not just any judge, a state Supreme Court judge. Right. Out on the lawn, threatening to kill people herself. Screaming, yelling. Yeah. This is what we're talking about. And overwhelmingly, this type of vitriol is articulated in policy and criminal sentencing, but it's not listed as overtly racist or sexist as it relates to black males. It's just considered, the law. So here we see in this egregious situation just exactly how somebody in her position feels. And yet we don't have a conversation about how this inadvertently affects black males and black male sentencing.
and both criticized and pledged favor treatment for the police.
The good part is, I'm always on your side. You know I'd take anyone down for you guys. You know that. You know that. You know I am on your side.
Video also captures the judge making comments about the black teens' intelligence levels.
They don't look like they're that smart, honestly. They're not going to business school. That's what I mean.
And praising her son for beating up partygoers, among other comments.
He put a smack down once he got hit.
I didn't say it was one-sided.
The commission now calling for the judge to be removed from the bench. The commission administrator telling CBS 6 it is utterly unacceptable for a judge to threaten gun violence, exhibit racial prejudice, promise favorable treatment for the police, or disparage a law intended to keep guns away from dangerous people. Any one of these things would undermine public confidence in the administration of justice. That all this and more was committed by one judge disqualifies her from further service on the bench. Now, Gall's attorney did provide a statement in a brief released by the commission saying the judge was in shock at the time, saying the incident triggered a trauma response to her own assault in the 90s. The judge saying in part,
now this is slick, right? She was in shock at the time, but then they twisted it. Right? And this is two ways where white womanism it kind of plays in. White women's tears is one way, and their vulnerability overall. Now the tears signify their vulnerability, but if she can't be on camera to cry, this is a way that can still be used. So what do they say? She was responding to a past trauma, right? Because this is the go-to move. This is how white women both defend themselves and attack at the same time. So this is the excuse that's being used to justify what she was saying, right? Her vulnerability, her own victimization. Let's see.
I was acting as a mom who just witnessed something awful. I wasn't acting appropriately or thinking the right way. She also says she attended counseling following this incident. It's now up to the Court of Appeals to decide whether or not to remove Gall. She's asking for a punishment lesser than removal. She's suspended while her fate is decided and has 30 days to appeal. Her 14-year term is set to expire next year.
There you go. There you go. But black males don't have any political interests, right? But again, a lot of the times what you see happening is you'll take issues that are usually pretty specific to black males and you'll generalize it to say these are black issues. This is, I've called this, the flat blackness before, and flat maleness. These are two concepts I talk about in my book. And one of the ways that we kind of diminish the amount of attention that black men can get, black males can get, regardless of age, is to either take the issues that affect them to a greater degree and make them black issues. So everybody that labels themselves black, and we know that's a complicated discussion in and of itself, can benefit, so to speak, from black males' vulnerability, trauma, or the flat maleness dimension of it is where you can collapse all men together. And this usually involves turning black men into honorary white men and just listing us as, men in this category that need to be critiqued, criticized, so on and so forth, simply because there's an issue associated with manhood. Either way, you're deflecting from actually dealing with black men's issues and you're dismissing black male voices at the same time. This is one of the things that we've seen happen, right? Let me see. Dead Set says, next time Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro talk about institutional racism, remember the institution's headed by people like this judge. Yeah. That's what we're looking at. All right. Shout out to Black Uru. He slipped up in here. It's good to see you, man. It says the fact that a woman like her can ascend to the top of jurisprudence in one of the country's biggest, most important states shows just how perilous it truly is to be a black American man. Real talk. Real talk. This is what we're looking at. This is what we're lking at. I wanted to show that because it came up in the news, but I didn't hear anywhere near as many people talking about it as I thought there should be. So I wanted to kind of get that in. And before we get to the main topic, there's only one other subject that I do think important to get to. So let me, now, I don't know. Other people have been able to do this quite easily. I usually have some trouble. So we're going to try this. Last time I tried it, it didn't work. But again, let's test it and see if you guys can hear it at all. Let me see. I'm just going to play a clip, see if you can hear it.
Mary, stealthing is defined as...
Okay, so let me know if you heard that. Give me a 1 if you heard that. Shout out to Tim Howard, gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Appreciate that. Okay, Kiel says 1. All right, so this is an issue called stealthing that I think we need to deal with, or at least be aware of. So check this out. Here we go.
Mary, stealthing is defined as tampering or removing a sexually protective device without consent. Now victims have the power to bring civil lawsuits against their partners.
Washington's new stealthing law is paving the way for sexual assault victims to come forward.
I did not consent to unprotected sex, and I felt deeply violated.
Back in February, Mina Hashemi testified before the Senate's legal committee in favor of House Bill 1958. She said she had consented to having protected sex with a man, but was shocked to find out that the condom had been removed without her consent.
I experienced deep anxiety about unwanted pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. I missed work to see my doctor for testing and had to spend money on Plan B.
Stealthing laws typically involve condoms, but in Washington, the definition of protective devices is broader. It includes condoms, diaphragms, cervical caps, and any other barrier that is meant to deter pregnancy and the spread of disease. Now victims can file civil lawsuits.
Give victims a clear pathway to file a civil suit. The burden of proof is much lower in a civil suit than in a criminal case. And also, the victim doesn't have to depend upon a prosecutor to file the case.
On the House floor, the bill had some pushback from state representatives who argued the bill wasn't fair to men. Attorney Mark Lindquist, who has handled criminal assault cases, tells me this law does not criminalize stealthing, but he said it is a step forward for victims.
In addition to making the process of filing a civil suit more clear, the bill also sends a message that if you do this, you could be held civilly liable.
And those who testified said that this new law gives victims more resources. And under this new law, perpetrators could pay up to $5,000 in damages per offense. We're now reporting in Seattle, Karina Vargas, Coma News.
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to put this guy on you guys' agenda, on your, on your desk, so that you are aware of it. This question of stealthing, right? And what it can involve and what can happen if it is deemed by somebody that this is something you may be guilty of, you may have committed an act against. I already see some questions coming through that I think are important. Passport OG says, what if she lies about being on birth control? Okay. Right. Hitflix says, but don't they have to prove they're victims first? MD says this is absolutely egregious. Donnie says I've had to rip one me in 15 years. Okay, if I misread that. All right. Somebody says, "Wow." Dead said, "Ask a critical question. What if the couple's married?" Interesting. Right. So what I'm saying with this is we have to be careful. Officer Faulkner says, "I see the fallacy in it already." Yeah. Right. We have to be careful because what these do is this provides another set of powers to those who can use them in nefarious ways. Right. But I actually talked about this in the last couple of years, a couple of times. And this is a piece that I think relates to this that I wrote a while back on the blog. So if you go to the blog where did it go? There we go. If you go to newblackmasculinities.wordpress.com, you will find the Black Male Political Agenda. You will also find a series of other pieces that I've written over the years. And this one is entitled, Should Sperm Theft Be Considered a Form of Rape or some type of sexual assault? And this deals with the question of what happens when men are exploited in terms of sperm. So this is very short. This one's only about 3 paragraphs. But I said, I was listening to a video where brother was talking about his girl getting him drunk and having sex with him for the express purpose of getting pregnant, even though they discussed it beforehand. And he told her very explicitly that he wasn't interested in being a father. You believe this is a form of coerced rape? In that regard, she manipulatively used alcohol while misrepresenting her status, pretending to be drunk. The question is sperm jacking, spurgling, motherhood by theft, or sperm theft, as it's referred to in Israel, a form of rape? Many of the articles I found about this discussed it, but it didn't classify it as such and stressed the difficulty in proving it, even if it were. If anything, they classified it in terms of whether or not a man can be held liable for child support, which is a valid question, but not whether or not the violation of trust and the use of his coerced sperm to produce a pregnancy was a violation of him in any way. In other accounts, some women have secured sperm through oral sex and kept it to impregnate themselves, or secured it by fishing recently used condoms, out of trash cans, so on and so forth, or even through coercive means such as sleep rape or use of drugs and alcohol. On moral terms, I think it's a violation, and I believe the use of it produces a pregnancy, and believe the use of it to produce a pregnancy should be classified as a form of something on par with rape, but it might require new language, just as made to penetrate had to be created to account for experiences of sexual violation that were previously ignored, particularly in regard to men. Producing a pregnancy from a man's coerced sperm should have a new classification. I said in the last paragraph, in the meantime, please stay in as much control as possible regarding your body and your sperm. As it stands, relatively speaking, few care, and by that I include the law, about what happens to you in contrast to women's violations. Protect yourselves, take nothing too lightly, maintain your faculties at all times. After all, sperm is something that can be produced well into old age. Be careful around those who may have designs on it at your expense. You're not required to give sperm because a woman is adamant about wanting it or threatens to withhold sex if you don't, tries to get you high or drunk, or misrepresents her use of contraceptives or lack thereof. This goes to what Passport OG was asking about a moment ago. Be careful, stay vigilant. In this economy, you have no idea how many hustles people are running to secure resources. So, what I'm pointing out here is this whole question that we're seeing being brought up about stealthing is specifically, as one of the lawyers kind of referred to in the news clip we just saw, it's targeted at men. But if you really want to talk about violations that could take place during sex, they're not limited to women. Women are not the only ones that can be violated or be made vulnerable. There are examples, and I just gave you a few, how men can be violated. And that's just in terms of sperm. I wasn't talking about the act of sex itself, right? Men can be violated in all kinds of ways. So can women. Women can be vulnerable. Men can be vulnerable. But for some reason, by the time it makes it to policy, it's only framed around protecting women. But the other side to this that few people want to admit to is that even though these policies are worded around protecting women, they're also giving power to those who can exploit the verbiage, the rhetoric, can exploit even the letter of the policy to use in a variety of ways, simply for whatever reason she wants. Whether it's vengeance, whether it's contempt, whether she's embarrassed the next day and doesn't feel good about the event she had with a gentleman last night, or simply because she changed her mind. What protections are in place for men? And there are very few. But more than that, what acknowledgement is there on how men can be vulnerable during sex? What kinds of situations are brought to bear? What kinds of policies can we talk about to protect men in vulnerable situations? I mean, we've seen cases where whether it's underage men and older women to situations where rape is involved, where young men are, violated. And if there is a pregnancy that's produced out of it, he may be responsible for child support. Now, imagine this. We've heard over the decades about whether or not abortion should be used in terms of a woman being violated, so on and so forth. How many times have you heard it discussed that if a man is raped and there's a child produced out of this, whether or not he should be able to abstain from involvement in the pregnancy? Whether he should have any word whatsoever, any say whatsoever about whether or not this child should be able to even live, even be birthed. Does he have any say at all? No, not really. But on top of all of that, shout out to KMK and the Cash App, appreciate that. Shout out in regard to all of that, he may be on the hook for child support for a child he didn't even want. And the example I gave you in the written piece, the gentleman I was speaking to, his girl got him drunk on purpose. I've heard that story a lot. Got them drunk, got them high, right? Tried to pull the condom off in the middle of it. There's all kinds of things. Don't get me to asking these fellas in the comments, how many different ways have they experienced a woman who wanted to have sex without a condom, without any kind of protection, or simply said, you don't need to wear it, I'm on the pill. How many times have you heard that one? You're putting your next 18 years at least, and of course your finances, all on her word. What happens if she just really wants to have a baby at that point? And we act like this is not a natural thing. Men have a desire to reproduce. It's in our DNA. We want to have sex. It's there before we even know what sex is. But we act like that's not the case for women. That women don't want to reproduce? Are you serious? We act this way. We act like women are just kind of walking around as these innocent snowflakes and men are just all, virtually rapists that just are looking for a wet hole. And that's the end of the dynamic. But don't get it twisted. The push for a woman to want to have a child, the push for a woman to want to reproduce and to do so in all kinds of ways. Shout out to BGS for the support. Thank you. We act like that's not a factor in human nature. That women won't become predatory and exploitive to have a child. We act like that doesn't happen. The only time it happens is when men are violating women. See, the difference is, I admit there are men that do that. I'm not arguing that there haven't been. But what I am arguing is you can't leave out 50% of the human experience simply because it's inconvenient for your politics. It doesn't work. Women have been lying about reproduction, have been lying about how to get pregnant, what to get pregnant with, who to get pregnant by for millennia. For the beginning of human existence. This is going on. This is not new. This has never been new. Shout out to Logic Before Emotion. Peace. Appreciate that donation. Thank you. This is not new. But we don't protect men. We don't acknowledge that this even happens. And we act like it can't. Shout out to Expansion Wiring on PayPal. Appreciate that. We act like this doesn't happen. And it's about time that we become far more vocal about it, because at the end of the day, if you can arbitrarily be made to pay for a pregnancy you didn't even want, after being drugged, drunk, lied to about, birth control, any of those things. You know what we do though? Instead of actually talking about policy that we can use or push for to advocate for us, what we do is we turn around and we say, well, he was stupid. He let himself get high. He got drunk. He should have put a strap on. We're good at that. And I'm not in disagreement that we have to be responsible for our own genetic material. But let's not pretend that there aren't situations where we can't be manipulated. And if we can be manipulated, should there be protections against that manipulation? Should there be legal protections? Should there be policy-based protection? Should there be punishments? Right? This is what stealthing is. Stealthing is a punishment. And the idea behind it mostly is that, a man takes a condom off or doesn't put one on, doesn't add protection, just decides to do what he wants to do against her will. But there's no conversation about whether or not that happens the other way. Something as simple as, oh, I'm on the pill, don't worry about it. That's a form of manipulation if she's lying. So you want to critique and punish each other about whether or not we were responsible? Fine, we can do that all day. My question is, after that, what else are we going to do? Are we just going to leave it at personal responsibility? Sounds good. Sounds real good. But there are a lot of circumstances where there needs to be more in place. Right? Needs to be more in place. If you take the case I brought up earlier about the underage boy, there was a 13-year-old man dealing with a 30-year-old woman. She wanted to have sex, and really, she wanted a baby. She got pregnant, and then she turned around and hit him for child support and got it. Right? But what I'm bringing up here is, in what way in the world is an underage young man prepared to deal with a grown woman that is on the hunt for a pregnancy? There are grown men that ain't ready for that onslaught. There are some men that are not ready for a naked woman who is aggressive and wants to have sex. She's not necessarily going to walk up and tell you she wants a baby, but if that's what she wants, let's not pretend that this doesn't happen. This is why we actually have to become very adamant about policy. There needs to be protections. And the reason you call for protections in a civilized society in regard to policy is because you can't account for every variation on a theme. Because if we just say men need to be responsible, wear a condom, sounds great. Great. We can all shake hands on it, give each other a pound. We agree. Peace. There are a million different circumstances where there's greater protection that needs to be brought to bear for a variety of reasons. The underage boy I just mentioned a second ago is just one of them. He's not ready. He's not prepared for that. What happens if you sleep? What happens if you've been drugged? What happens if you're drunk? Oh, those things only happen to women. Okay. There's a lot of men right now that are paying child support on kids they never wanted, and even may have said out loud that they didn't want before the act took place. There's a lot of that going on. But the other twist to it that we know about, and we talk about this only when we tend to talk about DNA, is whether or not men are dealing with kids they're paying child support for or taking care of that they think are theirs. And because DNA testing from birth is not mandatory, we're down to using techniques like, well, I think that's my nose. Well, the kid does kind of have my skin tone. I guess. And often, if you find out the child is not yours, you're 15 years deep in it. How cold you got to be to walk away from a kid you've been raising for years. And then on top of that, you'll be punished for it, particularly in the Black community. Your own mother and grandmother may curse you out for leaving a family even after you've been lied to about the parentage of the children you've been raising. You will be socially punished in your own families and in your own communities for leaving a situation where you were manipulated by a woman who knew at the very least there was a possibility that the child wasn't yours, but refused to tell you or the children. We're going to talk about stealthing then? We're going to talk about manipulation then? So there are a lot of ways men are vulnerable to sex. The act, the implications of it, the results of it. There's a lot of different ways. But none of those ways really provide any serious punishment to women that manipulate and exploit the situation for their own benefit. And I want there to be. So again, When we talk about policy, when we talk about what our political interests are you going to be willing to speak up? Are you going to have the balls to lay it on the line and say, no, there's a series of things we need to have conversations about. And if Trump or Kamala want my vote, these are things I need. Shout out to Dead Set. He says, I say leave all those heifers behind. Good riddance. Right. You know, but you got to get to a certain point in your life when you're ready to walk away entirely. You do. It takes a lot of discipline, and often it takes a lot of fucking tragedy and trauma before you're just ready to say, all right, I'm done. I can't tell you, even the first year freshmen that I meet, young Black males who are so, they desire the white picket fence, wife and kids so bad. And I know, because I was one of them. I know that feeling, right? You try to become more than the stereotype of what you've been told Black men were, but really what you want deep down is a loving family. And we are willing to put ourselves in all kinds of situations in hopes of finding that. But we are often not prepared, and the law is definitely not prepared to deal with how many women are willing to exploit men's desire for family. And that's so it's difficult to ask a young man or somebody who has gotten his life together specifically to have a family to prepare himself for how manipulative people can be to use that desire he has against them. It's difficult. Usually the men that I see that are prepared to deal with it have been through some shit. A lot of it. A lot of it. Ed said being one of them. You know, he didn't just wake up, wasn't just born with that perspective. He went through a lot of pain that brought him to this point where he can actually see the world the way he does. And that's the case for most of us. So in the interim, we need to have policy. In the interim, we need to have protections. And it is not a problem, or shouldn't be, in our own mind to seek it out, to require it of anyone that requires our votes. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about primary main subject of tonight in relation to another article that I found. And then I want to bring a few of you up to talk with me about this issue with Kamala and this whole question about how her presidency will affect Black men. Right? I'm going to do that. I hope some of my regulars will be willing to come up. Shout out to Inspired Truth. Appreciate that. It says facts. We need our side if the story's told. Absolutely. Some of my regulars, I hope Black Uru, I hope, Malika, I hope Dead Set might be willing to come up, but I understand if you can't, right? You know, if you're running, you're doing your thing. I'm going to put the link in the chat in a minute. But before I do, I want to kind of show you this article, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the main subject of tonight's show and bring you guys up to further discuss it, because I got a feeling that this is something many of you have some strong opinions about, and I think some of them should be heard. All right, so let me pull this up. All right, where'd you go? There we go. All right. Now, this is a piece on Forbes.com, right? And this is updated last April. And I thought it was interesting, and it made me think. It brought me to the main subject of tonight's show. Let me see what I do. Well, all right. Let me see. I'm going to read it to you anyway. All right. So where'd it go? All right. So the title of the article on Forbes.com, dated April 14, 2022, a couple years old. Women's scholarships and awards eliminated to be fair to men. Right? This made me, this website made me remove my ad blocker. So getting all kinds of crap on the screen I don't want. I apologize to you for that, but I will read nonetheless. Women's scholarships, leadership programs, awards, and even gym hours are being eliminated or canceled by universities because they discriminate against men. Complaints are being filed with the Department of Education about programs and funding for women at universities across the country, and the DOE is taking action. One of the latest targets is the Marilyn C. Davis Scholarship at the University of California, Santa Cruz. To be eligible for the Davis Scholarship, an applicant must be a mother returning to receive education in the sciences at UCSC. Ursat Pegos, I know I butchered that, so I ain't even gonna try. I apologize. Is an ex-USC student now working in Turkey filed a complaint against UCSC with the Department of Education. He believes that the scholarship is sexist and discriminatory because the award is not open to men. Last week, he received confirmation that the DOE will investigate, and a spokesperson from the university says they're aware of the investigation and are cooperating. The UCSC scholarship is just one example of the hundreds of women's scholarships and awards currently under scrutiny for Title IX violations. PEGOS has been involved in filing 21 other similar complaints. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. The reason I'm bringing this up, right, I'm just going to tell you out front, the reason I'm bringing this up is in our, when you talk about Black issues, right, if you go back to 2020, and on this channel, we've been talking about this regularly, right? We started to really see it become something completely blatant in 2020, right? Whether it was support for entrepreneurs, whether it was grants, scholarships, whether it was handout checks to families, there has been an overwhelming push to bring resources to women, and particularly in a Black context, Black women. Now, Black men, for the most part, don't even seem to expect it. This is how used to not receiving attention politically Black men are. It doesn't bother us. We don't even expect it. But when you start to see companies like MasterCard, Visa, when you started to see Goldman Sachs putting $10 billion toward, Black women and bolstering their position in the economy, we started to see resources and even PPP loans in 2020, right? The only men that I had on this channel talking about how they got them were men who had to use women as the face of their company to get some type of support. The idea being that Black men are not only last, if there's any energy brought toward us at all, in terms of policy and resources, but we don't even expect it. That's how used to not getting it we are. But the fixation on providing women those resources has been fairly consistent. And this is the crux of the question that I want to ask in regard to a Kamala Harris presidency. I'm indifferent about the conversations about how Black she is. We're going to go back and forth. Is Judge Joan Brown right? And the father is really just Irish and Indian? Or is everybody else claiming that she was raised in Oakland and the father is Black Jamaican? And we can go back and forth on all of that. We can go back and forth on, how many people she may have, jumped in bed with to get in her position. We can do all of that. My question is always going to come around the policy. I don't care if you are the Blackest person from the middle of Detroit, Chicago, Alabama, Oakland. I don't care how Black you are. If you're not going to produce policy that benefits Black males, you've already lost my vote. That's where I come from with it. And truthfully speaking, if she didn't have a Black drop of blood in her, but she was willing to put forth policy that benefited Black males, you have my attention. This is why I'm indifferent to personalities running for office. My question is, what are the policies that are going to benefit Black males? And can you articulate them? Can you be held accountable to them once you get into office? Those are the questions I'm more interested in. The reason I bring this up with Kamala is if she is as she is presenting herself, because it's politically useful for her to do so, right? To present herself as part of the Black Gynarchy. And we see this with the academic aristocracy. We see it with the fraternal and sororal orders and whatnot. If all of that is how she actually is, then maybe if we look to how women in those positions have been able to benefit from resources, if we look at their behavior, might that be a window into what a Harris presidency would look like? When we talk about the resources extended to Black women over just the last 4 years, how many of those women actually stopped and said, you know what? We're not going to go forward until our men get something too. We're not just a collection of individuals. We're families, we're communities, we're getting resources extended to Black women. But Black male homelessness rates have always been through the roof, and that was before the pandemic. Black men, in some statistics, we constituted, the majority of homeless men in America. Some even suggested half of America's homeless were Black, and overwhelmingly male. Overwhelmingly male. We don't talk about that. Not only do Black men typically deal with unemployment to far greater degrees than any other demographic in our community, let alone in the country, but we deal with homelessness to a greater degree. These are abject, impoverished positions where you are busted and on your ass. How many of those resources were thought about in relation to families? How many of them were targeted? How many mothers who were benefiting from these resources said, you know what? I have a son. I have multiple sons. Some of these resources should be earmarked for them. They're being mislabeled in schools starting in before they even reach the 3rd grade. They're being pushed out. They don't even get a chance. Over 90% of the teachers they run across in elementary school are female, even though there's data to suggest that males are inspired by male teachers and females are inspired by female teachers. Well, what happens when the majority of males don't have any male teachers? And they're being graded lower by female teachers. But we're not going to suggest that there may be any problem with that. We're just going to immediately assume it's just because they're poor students or they don't learn well, whatever the stereotypes are. How many mothers receiving resources actually said, you know what, my sons need something earmarked for them? My husbands, my brothers, my uncles, my business partners, women who were in position to receive, how many of them actually stepped back and said, these need to be extended on a communal basis because the community is suffering from a lack of inherited wealth and thus less capital to start businesses. So yes, more Black men have businesses than Black women. But are we going to talk about the quality of those businesses? We're going to talk about how much inherited wealth, how much wealth is involved in providing capital to start these businesses. Could Black men have used those resources? And what would have taken place if Black men would have received $10 billion allotments like from Goldman Sachs, but didn't say anything about the needs of Black women? How would that have been received? Well, again, just like I'm saying with Kamala, sometimes looking at the past actions of a larger situation might give you an indication, right? So let's go back to Obama's program, right? My Brother's Keeper, which wasn't even targeted for Black men. It was targeted for young men of color. Let's be clear. Young men of color. It was labeled as something just for Black males. I was pissed that it wasn't for Black males, but all right, we'll play the men of color game. What happened to it? Did women take offense that young men benefiting or who may have benefited, or men in general who were looking on, trying to understand what this program might be? Did they take offense that the program was not opened up to women? You damn right they did. You're damn right they did. And they tore it down from the inside before many of us even had a chance to find out what the hell it was. Tore it down. Had a petition going nationwide to tear it down. Even though there was already a White House Council for Women and Girls, to add an addendum for girls of color, you could apply that same energy to adding that addendum to it. But instead of adding an addendum that would have expanded the White House Council for Women and Girls and provided some type of opportunity for them, no. Instead, they smashed the My Brother's Keeper program. But when Black women start getting resources and grants and scholarships, and it's funny because I've asked Black men who tell me, nah, doc, you're just, you're being sexist. Who broke your heart? What is it? Who hurt you? You're not thinking about this clearly. There are plenty of scholarships for Black males. I asked men, show me. Some of them showed me scholarships that have been on the books since 1987, but have been defunded and defunct for years. They're just listed on some old website somewhere. Some show me scholarships that are in the planning stages. And that was 4 years ago. And the funny part about it is those planning stages never ended. Whether they were old, outdated, defunct scholarships and grants, or whether they were planned ones that never reached the ground, very few people could point to any type of scholarship or grant that was targeted at Black males. And even some of the ones they said they found that looked like they were legitimate, when you looked into them, they weren't for Black males. They were for anybody who applied. Now, nobody's arguing that there aren't scholarships and grants that Black males can apply to. We're arguing that there are not resources targeted and earmarked specifically for Black males, even though there's plenty of data from employment to entrepreneurship to homelessness that would suggest that Black males could use them across age, across class, across occupation. There's plenty of data to suggest that this might be useful, not only improving the quality of life for Black males, but also for Black families. So when we see these resources extended to Black women, particularly this boule gynocracy that we see, usually they're in the background, but with Kamala, they're coming out because this is their opportunity to get a woman in the highest office. So they're out. We're seeing sorority colors all over the place. They're out like gangbanging, right? How many of the resources have been extended to Black males when there was opportunity. When Black women were earmarked for those resources, how many of them said, you know what, we need to share these with our brothers? Yeah, I'm not saying this out of contempt. I'm not angry. I'm way past that. I'm clear. People's motivations are clear. It's very simple. If I say I love you, but you're starving, and I'm going to sit down and eat a plate of food right next to you, but I'm going to offer you none when I know you're starving, do I love you? I don't give a fuck if you say you do or not. If you're not helping me, you don't. Right? You don't. We've seen these resources extended time and time again in one area, in another area, in another area, and never once have we heard Black women as a collective get together and say, you know what? We have sons, we have brothers, we have husbands, we have fathers, grandsons. We need to share these resources to build. And by extension, did we ever say, if Kamala gets into office, Black women are clear on what they want her to do to uplift their position? Was there anything extended to Black males on behalf of that? Shout out to Builder's Table. He says, money for the plate, supporting brothers in media. Gold Professor. Appreciate that, man. How you doing? Okay. These are the questions I'm asking. I'm going to go back to this because I do want to finish it, but I just want to put those kind of things on the table. And again, I'm sorry about the ads. I can't freaking get rid of them, but hopefully that's all right. So let's go through. Mark Perry, an emeritus professor at the University of Michigan's Flint campus and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, has filed a whopping 410 Title IX complaints against universities that offer programs or awards for women, but not men. Perry says he was first inspired to take action when his university was offering several awards targeting female faculty. He complained internally, and the university modified the awards to be open to all faculty. Now, this is tricky. I've seen this at multiple universities. They will offer things to all faculty, but if the award committee that makes a decision on who gets the awards is comprised of whatever the demographic used to be targeted for, in this case, women, guess who will continue to win those awards more often than not? And when you try to complain, what they'll show you is the letter of the policies and the verbiage that has been changed, so it's no longer female focused. And so they can actually say, look, we complied. Complaint was filed. We complied with the complaint. We removed all the verbiage about women, and now the scholarship is open to everybody. It just so happens that only women got the award. It'll be a combination of men didn't apply to, well, the women's applications were just better. But then you look at the decision-making committee. I've seen these things function. It's definitely a game. It's the game where they move the shells around or the cards around, and you have to pick the one that you think is the card. It's a shell game. It's definitely a shell game because people are not trying to give these resources up lightly. Not white women, not Black women. Obviously, the Black Academy is a minute fraction of the academy, but when you get into the academy, you find out that the overwhelming majority of it, particularly when you're talking about the Black, section of the academy, is female. When you talk about hiring committees, when you talk about, scholarship committees, decision-making bodies, mostly women. Hell, I've watched in the last 10 years, my own field, Africana Studies. You go to the conferences like the National Council for Black Studies. It's mostly female. Any day now, I'm waiting for them to change the name of the organization. But it wouldn't make a difference to the people that are going because as far as they're concerned, they treat it as a primarily Black female organization in the first place. I watched it happen. I've been going to that conference since 94, 95, all the way up to now. I've watched it happen like a game of chess. Fewer and fewer males, more women taking over committees. Even the programs where you have you go to the conference and you listen to presentations, there'll be 2 or 3 on men, and barely anybody will show. There'll be over a dozen on women. Packed. They'll be doing presentations on women performing drum dances. It doesn't fucking matter. It's primarily women. This is what they're talking about in this article, but they're referring to the academy as a whole. But I'm saying I've seen it happen in microcosms in terms of the Black Academy as well. Shout out to Greg. Appreciate the cash app. So let's continue here. He complained internally, and the university modified the awards to be open to all faculty. Shortly after that, in 2016, he filed a complaint about a women's lounge at Michigan State. The lounge was subsequently repurposed. Since then, he has filed hundreds more complaints and has become the go-to guy for others who want to report Title IX infractions anonymously. Now, this is interesting because I've had this happen too. When you become outspoken about something that most people are terrified to speak of, instead of joining you, holding hands with you and articulating their concerns, their legitimate concerns from their own experiences, what they'll do is they'll whisper, they'll email you, they'll text you, sometimes even anonymously, and say, yeah, this is what's happening. You go fight that fight. You fight it for me. But I stand with you. And if some shit comes your way where you're accosted and people are trying to attack you because of your outspokenness, a lot of those brothers will not stand up with you. Whether you succeed or fail, they won't stand with you. So when they talk about here how he became the go-to guy for Title IX infractions, it's funny. You notice they didn't say they joined him. That he became the go-to guy so that they could report anonymously. He was the face of it. And this is something we do all the time, as opposed to actually supporting each other and standing shoulder to shoulder. There are very few Black academics I've run across that can't tell me they haven't had the same experiences I have. I have far too many of them that reach out to me on an annual basis to tell me their complaints, and they're the same experiences. Sometimes from the most feminist guy you done met. You never suspect him to say it, but he'll tell you behind closed doors. Publicly, different question. Anyway, although he is still waiting to hear back from the Department of Education on the majority of his complaints, he has already had success in shuttering programs, scholarships, and awards for women at the universities throughout the country. To garner support for their efforts, both Pegos and Perry point to the fact that it's men, not women, who are now underrepresented in universities. Women in the United States have earned more bachelor degrees than men every year since the mid-1980s. Last fall, women made up 59.2% of all those enrolled in a college or university, and men made up only 40.8%. Now, I think many of us also agree in this circle of the internet that this also has to do with the return on investment. Right? So not only the cost of school, but measuring that against the return of investment after graduation, school loans. You have men that are making practical decisions about going into other fields that, create less debt. But let's not also pretend that it's not because, the resources that are extended aren't blocked from men, particularly Black men. That's part of the equation, because your analysis on return on investment might be different if resources were extended to you as they are to others. Let's continue. Women are also outperforming their male peers, earning high GPAs in high school and college, even in male-dominated STEM fields. Now, Pegos and Perry argue that efforts to help women in college are no longer necessary and are unfair to men. Both say they've received mostly positive feedback regarding their efforts. Regardless of whether you agree with these initiatives, they're apparently illegal under Title IX. Title IX protects people from discrimination based on sex and education programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance, and that include almost all colleges and universities in the U.S. Keep in mind, the Black male political agenda, we not only talk about Title IX, we talk about Title IV. We talk about having these reworded, reframed, specifically because of their impact on men and Black men in particular. This June, it'll be 50 years since Title IX was enacted, primarily to protect women and women's programs in universities. Sexual harassment and assault cases at universities are covered under Title IX. And the law is also credited with a huge increase in participation and funding for women's sports. Now, the law is being used by men seeking equality for the same reasons that universities can't offer sports to men only. They can't offer awards solely to women. There you go. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you'd like to come up, come on up. But I bring this up because I'm showing you how these programs, these resources are being called into question, but only by individuals and small groups of people who are willing and courageous enough to raise the question publicly, let alone take it to court, right? How many women, particularly Black women, have we seen receive these resources and turn around and try to find ways to extend them on the basis of communal love, right? On the basis of us being Black as a community. clearly, if one demographic gets resources and the other doesn't, does that benefit a community if that's what indeed we're supposed to be? If we're a community, tell me, how does that work? If those resources aren't shared. And if the women that Kamala is linking with do not have a history of overtly sharing resources with the Black men that they're trying to get votes from now, would that happen differently if Kamala was elected to the highest office in the land? All right, let me bring a few people in here. MC, your camera's on. You know, if that's what you want, give me a thumbs up. If not, I'll let you decide before I bring you up. I do understand some people want to protect their anonymity. Okay, there we go. So let me go ahead and put the labels up. We can actually see who we're talking to. All right. Got a few people in the building. So let me go ahead and start in order of what's on the screen. We'll start with Brother Malika. Everybody else just mute your mic. I will get to you. Brother Malika, what's going on, man?
Peace and love to you, good brother. Peace and love to the people on the panel. How y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you coming up. This is not a topic that I wanted to hog to myself. I wanted the brothers to speak. But give me your thoughts, man. What are you thinking as far as a Kamala presidential term? What do you think?
It's a joke. You hit something very poignant, and I didn't think of it until you said it. She does fit that modern day talented 10th Black boule, high sorority, paper bag test crew. And by going with a girl back in the day who was an AKA, and Kamala is an AKA, I got a glimpse into that world. And realizing that we don't have a snowball's chance in hell, regular people, but definitely Black men. Because we can go back to what Du Bois said. He wanted to create the talented to be separate, so they can have their agenda that they can move ahead. But it's different now.
Yeah,
it's different now. You hit something on the head when you were talking about the scholarships, and I even felt that when I went back to school at the age of 42. And I wanted to look for scholarships, and I went into the bursar's office, and this young white woman gave me this thick binder and said, look. And I said, well, could you guide me for anything? And I started looking and looking and looking. And I got to tell you, brother, all I saw was stuff for Black women that were pregnant, women that were on drugs, women, anything that dealt with a woman, anything that dealt with other than a Black man. And like you say, you had to search, and I was like, this is crazy. But seeing how the way, knowing Kamala and knowing how the way, just what Ice Cube said 2 or 3 years ago, you're not a part of the Black community. And Claudia Jordan let that slip. No, and she had to correct herself, say yes, and it was proof. Yes, you do not see yourself as part of the community.
Exactly.
So, like how you said, if you don't love me, why are you sitting? If you say that you love me, why are you sitting in my face eating? If you don't love me, then leave me alone. But the problem is, like Kevin Sammy said, we're the only best bet you got.
Right.
But the thing is, if we are given a chance, BGS said a long time ago, Black men, we just want a fair chance. But the problem is, Black women know if we get a fair chance, we're going to to give the wealth to the community and build the community up. Black women don't want gynocratic Black women do not want the Black community to be built up. That means because that takes power away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes the power away from them, that they do not want to have a collective community, meaning that they're going to have to be in agreement and in accordance with Black men, which they're going to realize Black men are going to have to lead, or they're going to have to understand what is best for the community, not what's just best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a problem because Kamala does not have our best interest, because we don't even know what her policy is.
Mm-hmm.
What she's doing, she is placating to what we only like as Black people in the community. We love entertainment, so that's why she had Quavo. That's why she had Meg Thee Stallion. That's why she's going to have all these people. She's not giving policy, she's giving pomp and circumstance, because we like to see that. And we're just seeing the image of her, oh, a Black woman, when she doesn't even claim it. She claims things that are for her best interest. She claimed becoming an AKA because she knew that was good for her politically, that's good for her socially.
Mm-hmm.
She'll claim being Black to get votes. She'll claim being Indian to curry, no pun intended, favor from that group. She'll claim this, she'll claim that. She'll claim Martian if it's just to get votes. But this is a woman where, you know, you got to give a side eye to that she's just doing this. But the problem is, Black people, we're just seeing the image. I got a call last week when Kamala had that, when she had that online poll and she was getting people. I had a call from a guy I went to college with. I haven't heard from the guy like in a couple of years. He said, "Hey, are you watching Kamala?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you need to check this out. You need to join." And I said, "Oh, whoa." I said, "No." And he says, "Well," he said, "You're not." I said, "No." And it offended me because he just automatically assumed I should be jumping for Kamala. And first of all, I find it offensive because you're coming at me and thinking that I should jump on board because she's Black, or you're even pushing your political views upon me. And he could tell in my voice it was offensive. I was like, wow. And that was the first part where I'm realizing, okay, I'm going to have to prepare myself and, like, you know, plant my feet firmly to get ready to feel the barrage, not just from Black women, but from Black men and Black women, and from people that are blinded by, she's a Black woman, quote unquote, or she's the best bet, but what is her policy? And if she's following the policy of Biden continuing it, we're going to go into deeper hell. She hasn't stated anything for unemployment. She hasn't stated for anything for homeless. She hasn't stated anything dealing with the crisis for the border. She hasn't talked about a plan for anything dealing with taxes. She hasn't talked about dealing with the war.
And we actually haven't seen her political plan, which, and I have to say, you know, I heard Yvette Carnell say it first, as far as what I heard. She said, look, if you're in politics, especially if you're a vice president to a president whose health has been in decline for years, you need to have your political plan in the chamber. You know, I think Antonio said something similar. Like, you needed to be ready to hit the ground running. Your website should have been up. Your political plan should have been up. You are in a position where you could be president on any given day. You know, we didn't watch Biden falling over stairs and stumbling over words and having to be walked out of events just on purely the basis of health. And you don't have that ready to go. But I want you to hold tight, because I need to bring some more people in, and I want and there's one other person who's in the back chat, Dr. Thunder, who I can't bring up because we have so many people up. So
I'll come down and let the good doctor come up.
I want to keep you up, but I want to see if we can get a few people in, and I have some things to throw at y'all that I want you to respond to. But very quickly, let me get Officer Charles to drop a word about your thoughts, where you're coming from, and then I'm going to start bringing in some people and rotating some out. So just hold tight. But Officer Faulkner, give us your thoughts on what's going on.
Good evening, and
what's good?
Well, you're one of my Facebook friends, so I'll start from there. Did you see the onslaught of comments that I had when I said there's nothing you convinced me to vote for Kamala?
I saw that you posted it. I didn't see the responses.
When your show's over, go humor yourself and you'll laugh.
Okay.
And notice I didn't say I'm voting for Trump. I just said I'm not voting for Kamala. And people already had this vitriol.
Yeah.
If Trump says his political one, I'm black. Last time I checked, and nobody's going to let me forget.
Right.
Two, I'm a father of still, even though my son recently turned 17, but he's still school age. So, and I'm also a veteran of a foreign war. So if Trump's pushing more agendas for veterans and fathers, why would I vote for somebody who doesn't have that objective? And actually, if you go by her past, she cares not of the black father struggle. It's the saddest thing when you go through a logical discussion with highly emotional people.
Yeah.
And it really makes you appreciate the space that we have in the YouTube streets called the Black Manosphere to talk to not just like-minded, but similar-minded, because we have our little differences. Where even if I don't agree with you, good doc, at least you can articulate your difference properly. And I can do the same. But like Malika said, to fall in line and shut up, black man, do as you're told.
Right.
It's old. What happens when the slave walks off and says, I'd rather die than do this or dig another hole for you? What happens when your biggest working resource understands its value within a scheme? And it's like that nice song back in the day, what have you done for me lately? And it's not a damn thing. And my son next year will be 18. He'll chronologically, quote unquote, legally be an adult. How does it look to leave him into the adult world with no backing, no foundation? He already knows because I've taught him how the world really is. But imagine you're giving all these college awards to women. Think about this. In 2030, they're trying to do this initiative called 30 for 30, where 30% of your law enforcement is going to be female. That's the initiative they're trying to prove. But you find out when you do the research, you're going to have more excessive calls. You're going to have more shootings because they're smaller and weaker.
Okay.
It's justified.
Okay.
And what's the one thing women are prone to do when they get that type of power? How many times have men been arrested for domestic violence or egged on into things? And I'm not saying you don't have capable females out of there, but from my experience of nearly 2 decades, you're not getting the fair end of the stick if a female officer comes and you have a domestic dispute. No violence, just a dispute. And here's the craziness of it. You want equality, but not when it's equally given out.
Right.
And that's the hard part. I'm gonna end it off with this. A vote for Kamala is like you might as well put the shackles back on your legs. Because your sons, you think she's gonna really feel sorry for you because you can't pay child support? You think you're gonna have a fair, impartial law enforcement or DOJ for fathers in custodies? No. No, reasonable. Think about it. You can't find a job. You're basically, from what I hear, y'all from Cali, from what I hear, she was the AG and she pretty much had people locked up because they were black and poor. But I'm gonna stop right there.
Okay. Appreciate that. Better you. Drop a word on this. real quick.
Hey, how you doing today, good doctor?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing well. As somebody who is Greek, as a member of A5A, I found that call to be disgusting. That Sunday that everything cleared, because there was all up and down my chat line, there were brothers going crazy about how much money they had raised for. And the fact is that, at least as of earlier today, there's still not any policy on the website.
Right.
And I see this as possibly one of the worst things for not just the Black community, but for American politics.
Yeah.
If you have a candidate, a major party candidate, who can present the most vapid platform possible and get the endorsement of the American people, like, you literally voting for nothing and being proud of it.
Yep. And it, it would be one thing if they were just, running kind of like Trump and JD Vance, right? They're just running for the position against the opposition that's already in the presidency. But you've been vice president to this man for the last 4, knowing his health has been in decline. I mean, that's like being a second string quarterback on an NFL team. At what point are you not ready to go in? At any play, this cat could get hurt. Anything could happen. You have to be ready to go, and I don't see any indication of that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'll simply say this, before I land my plane. Trump got his agenda on his website.
You see that?
It's there. I mean, I think that we as Black folks, and especially the Black Greeks in particular, should really be demanding something. And I feel like, once again, in terms of politics, when it comes to Black folks, they want us to give away our power and vote for nothing, while everybody else is able to come in off of our hard work, our blood, sweat, and tears, and reap the rewards of everything. And I'll land right there.
I appreciate that. I'm going to take you down because I want to bring in somebody, but I will say this. I wish you were on that call with Roland Martin and crew, because they had the frat out there pretty deep, and I didn't hear any brothers that were raising questions which need to be raised. So thank you for coming up and dropping that. Let me see. So let me bring in. All right. So let me go to MC, recovery and relapse. Talk to us.
Yeah. What's up, Dr. T?
What's going on, man?
Man, at first I was nervous, but I was just enjoying the show, and I just had a couple of things. I'm gonna say one thing about Obama and then Kamala is that I work for LA County Department of Mental Health, and I got in through my lived experience and my substance use of the past. So working for the young adult program, the transitional age youth program, we got, thank God, some of the parents of Black and brown boys, especially some Black boys, got on our office because we had that Brother Keeper campaign money, and their boys was being turned away over misdemeanor.
Wow.
So that triggered the Board of Supervisors and the CEO office to come down there to see what's going on. And then in the last 2 Bridges programs, they kept checking to make sure it was some guys in there. And he apologized to the women because he said if it was going to be women in here, he had to shut it down. So and then on the Kamala part, to me, she been just moving her lips, and then I heard that they using the same tropes to fear tactics, gifts and handouts, and talking about the middle class is the part that hurts me the most, because what I like about the manosphere and this shit is that I was raised up stepson of a man that had friends that had small businesses like alternator shops, tire shops. Our father had that used appliance store. So So you know, I know how to cut line, do stores, do roofing, do all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, this thing I heard one of the guys mention is that they to me it looked like they just don't want us to bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard in the gentleman earlier. It's like, because all of that, these shops that I just mentioned, they all are being ran now today, the majority of them by immigrants.
Okay.
These same body shops, tire shops, it's only a little left in South Central, Crenshaw. Crenshaw got a lot of theirs left, but in the Crenshaw area. But when you look at other parts of the city where it was once these tow truck yards and laundromats that was black owned, they all gone. They all been transitioned into immigrants' hands, and the majority of that happened up under Democrat policies. A lot of Democrat policies and issues and houses that have been just everything flipped. So, and my last name is Harris. And I remember my son, when he was 7, around 9, he took a picture with Kamala Harris when she came out here, when Mark Willie Thomas did the grand opening of the Martin Luther King Hospital that they wanted to take from us.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and that probably had some real estate issues. I think they wanted to really, I think he put a damper in their plans. I think they wanted to knock some of that down to put up some housing for this disaster that everybody see on the streets out here in LA with this homeless, houseless issues we have out here.
Right.
So you know, that's why my show is like, you know, the MC Recovery and Relapse show, because you know, I was once homeless before recovery, and while being a LA County Department of Mental Health employee with a son, we was homeless for 6 months. Hey, I had to find something quick.
I hear you. I appreciate it. Hold tight. I'm gonna try and bring in some more people into this. Like I said, I got some stuff to throw at y'all.
So I'm gonna drop on out. And
okay.
Shit, I was nervous about coming up here for a minute, but I'm gonna drop on out then.
Oh man, I appreciate you dropping the word, man. I want brothers to be able to articulate their thoughts. You know, I just want to hear where y'all coming from, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, man. Let me see. Let's go ahead with Wrench Turner. What's up, man? Let's see, Wrench Turner, you maybe stepped away. Can you hear me?
All right, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's good with you, man?
Man, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. What's the word, man? What are your thoughts on this?
Man, if I can be like you when I grow up, I'll be all right. Salute to all of the brothers. Salute to all the brothers on the panel. Salute to all of the brothers in the chat. So a few things. I got a lot of experience with this DEI stuff, and I'll tie it into how it relates to Kamala Harris. So I worked for a Fortune 500. As of the end of last month, I resigned and came on back home to Texas, man. I was working up in Louisville, Kentucky. But a few things that the brothers, if you haven't already experienced, something to kind of keep your head on the swivel for and look out for. We had an initiative where they said, all right, 25% of the head count has to be women. And we would have weekly meetings where they would check in on this, right? And the people that were pushing this initiative were primarily liberal white women. And then, of course, you know, Keisha's in there. The funny thing about that, too, is in these meetings, they get to explore the full gamut of their emotions. So if a site is not up to snuff as far as what the female head count was, you know, they could be extra sassy on there, and nobody from corporate would say anything, right? Because they were, a lot of times they were females too, the ones who were actually handing off to the males that were in, at the corporate level, the suits. So that is some of the things that that you would have to look out for. The other thing I would say too, DEI is cool up until you start getting to the upper echelon. Me and a lot of the guys that I work with, so the guys that take the calls in the middle of the night, show up to the sites in the middle of the night and work on things and kind of herd cats and get everything together to get these sites back up and running in the event of a breakdown. Always male, always heterosexual. It was always us. But on the website, whenever they say, "Hey, we're doing good this quarter," so we held this event at the corporate lunchroom. It's always women. It's just a sea of women dressed in pencil skirts and they drinking coffee and eating cake and stuff. But the workhorses, right? We're always us. Why this matters? I'll give you a couple examples of how this stuff bleeds out into society and how I've even, as a leader. So for those who don't know, I worked all the way up to the director level. And for a Fortune 500 company that everybody's pretty familiar with, it's probably in everybody's home right now. So I was up in San Luis Obispo, coming back from the Redwood National Forest. And I watched this lady literally break out crying, throw a hissy fit, throw a tantrum at the counter inside of this small regional airport because she forgot her boarding pass and ID, I think. And so that's an example of, we literally have people out here, grown adults, that are flipping out. I'm talking about flipping out the way a child would if they couldn't get candy in the store, something, right? The camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, and what made me go ahead and relocate back to Texas, is I had a young lady who had directly benefited from me being in my position when I went up to Kentucky. This lady has got about a $5 or $6 an hour raise when I got there. She worked the program. She was somebody that I mentored. And the same lady doubled back year and a half, 2 years later and said, "I feel like you don't support Black women." I was like, man, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm not doing this shit. I'm going back to the South where it ain't as pervasive down here. Right. The other thing I saw, I was actually going to do some content on it, but I saw a video where this lady cut this man in line, cut in front of this guy. He's literally waiting in line at the grocery store. She cut in front of him and didn't say nothing, just cut in front of him and was going to check out. So the minute he even said, "Hey, she threw a fit," and she screamed at the top of her lungs, obviously to get people's attention. And he was like, "Hey, I was in line. You just cut in front of me." And then she escalated it. "Well, I was just graped a few days ago. You stressing me out." And she screamed. And so a bunch of people came and made this dude move to another line. You see what I mean?
You're hitting what I was thinking when you started it. What happens when the tantrums are awarded? Right? If she's able to get on the plane without her ID because she threw a tantrum, is she able to get a promotion or to not even be punished for horrible behavior that you couldn't get away with half of? What does that do when she's rewarded for her tantrum? It's just going to incentivize more of it. But go ahead.
Absolutely. The other thing too, if I hadn't mentioned it, they'll push DEI, at middle management at the floor level, but once they get to that corporate level, you look and it's a complete whiteout. You know what I mean? Complete whiteout. So when I left, they sent me a link and said, "Hey, can you take this survey to kind of let us know why you left?" And I was like, "Man, I'm not even going to play the game, right? I know that it's like the old folks used to say, the prayer didn't even leave the room. Oh, wow. I'm not gonna play the game. I'm not gonna articulate what the issue was. But what I am noticing though is myself and maybe 5 other leaders that had been there I had been there for over a decade, but all of us had been there for at least 5 years. I mean, at the senior manager, director, plant manager level, all leaving the business. One matter of fact, one is leaving in November. He put in his notice today. The last little bit, and then I'll give it up to some of the other brothers, is what Kamala represents, and why all of this is important. What she represents is an opportunity for a lot of Black women to vicariously live through her, right? She has the white husband, right? She has the network, she has the celebrity status, and then she also has the education, which helps them push this most educated lie. We know they're the most enrolled, but this most educated lie that a lot of them tend to hang their hat on whenever it comes time to have discussions or have debates. But that is my piece, brothers. I will land my plane there.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Just, the thing I trip out on is, do y'all think Obama would have had a shot in hell with a white wife?
Hell no.
I not at all. But we're
Absolutely not.
We're supposed to treat this as Black women's advancement, but we're not going to talk about her husband. But we know damn well, when the night, the election night, man, folks I heard more women talking about Michelle than Barack.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought she was running for president. And I've argued for the longest that Black women voted for Michelle and Barack was a proxy. So it's interesting when you get, Kamala with a white husband, nobody talks about it. I mean, nobody, but you get my point. It's nowhere near in discussion as much as Michelle was when it came to Barack.
Correct. Correct. The last little bit I want to say too, you just made me kind of jog my memory. I said this on another panel on Machismo TV, and I think I've even said it on mine. This is not, for the brothers that are listening, this is not something that is not going to affect you. At some point, it's going to come to your front door. And what I mean is, my sister texted me the other day and said, "Hey, I shared my Uber ride with you. Can you see where I'm at?" And I was like, "You need a husband. Because this is not the first time. You need a husband." And she told me, this is my sister that I've been raised with. She told me, she said, "Well, a husband can suggest something for me to do. He can't tell me what to do." I was like, and that's the problem. I said, because I'm not going to be tracking your Uber rides and Lyft rides every day.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would tell the brothers, for me, it was an easy choice to make to give up that career because I have a pretty solid network and I already have something else in the pipeline right now. But brothers, start thinking about what is it that you're willing to pay, because it's going to come to your front door. What are you willing to give up in order to stop this misandrous slope that we're on right now? Because it's going to cost all of us something. I'll land my plane there.
Well, I will say this, man. I talked about this before when I talk about what I call the gyno-potestal family. What it is you have this extended gynocracy. And what they will do, kind of like what you just mentioned, is they'll call brothers, they'll call sons, share each other. This is a group of Black women in a family unit, and sometimes even in a friendship unit. They will share their sons, their boyfriends. They'll share those men to provide husbandly services so they don't have to get married. So they about being independent, knowing full well that now that she doesn't have to work with one man, she can share a bunch of men to do what's necessary so she can continue to live this independent idea. And the independent idea only works because she can share men's resources, whether it's their skill, their protection, their money, whatever it may be. She can function and still present the image that she doesn't need men as long as she can tap into them. It's almost like Uber for sharing husbandly responsibilities. And this does and can include sex, by the way. Don't get it. I have seen it happen. But I appreciate that. Last thing I wanted to say about what you said, I don't know your line of work. I don't know your business. So you correct me if I'm wrong. And for everyone listening, do what you know you need to do in your line of work, because I obviously can't speak to that. But I would humbly urge men, especially if you're going to leave, to document your reasons. And the reason I'm only saying that is because there are situations where if you do have a paper log, you do have a paper trail on a certain type of behavior, there may be brothers who down the line are going to be, who might be filing on their own, not knowing that there are 10 other reports listed about this person or listed about this group of people that may end up being able to be used at another point. Now, if you have a reason for not filing and you're protecting your career, I'm not the one that, you know your work better than I do. For sure. If it's something that you can do without it costing you, document and allow others to be able to pick that up and run it further if need be. So just a suggestion, but you know your business, you measure that against what you know and make your decision. But appreciate that word, Rich Turner.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Shout out to Black Uru. What's up, man?
Hey, how you do, Doc? Thanks for having me.
Always good to hear your voice. What's up?
If I could chime in on what you guys were just talking about, definitely do the exit interview. Always do the exit interview to put in all your complaints and everything. Make sure a representative of that company signs that exit interview. You sign it, they sign it. And definitely make sure you have an official copy of that exit interview. and store. Well, these days you can scan, you can take pictures, but definitely store a copy of that for future reference, either for your own purposes, because you yourself may choose to take legal action, or as some sort of supplement to someone else's attempts to do so.
Thank you.
So just wanted to include that. I mean, that comes from some personal experience or professional experience. There's so many ways I can go with this, but I'm going to ask the other gentleman on the panel I want to hear from. I know you want to hear from, so I'm not going to go too deeply. I'm going to ask a question. Let's consider the prospects of a Kamala Harris presidency. With the power behind her of the United States Attorney General's office, the FBI, which is a bureau within the Attorney General's office, National Security Council, U.S. Marshal Office, Homeland Security, CIA. What do you think is going to happen to an environment like this under that sort of environment? That's something that the men who are listening to and participating in this stream, you may want to really think about if that woman becomes president.
Okay.
And I'll be in my opening statement there.
So if your girlfriend is apt to use the police to control you, if she's not happy with you, what might she do if she has all the apparatus, the country at her disposal? Is that what you say?
Well, I foresee, for example, social media becoming much more intrusive in this area, in this environment in particular, much more aggressive, much more overt, much more confrontational, much more litigious. I definitely foresee that happening.
Okay.
Because all those AKAs, a lot of them don't like us. A lot of them don't like what we talk about around here.
Right.
Well, one who got the ear to this one, who's got the ear to that one, who's got the ear to, some associate attorney general or whatever. And next thing you know, you got some fallacious investment and a fallacious investigation in the Black manosphere.
Well, you're right. I've seen that Black Gynarchy class work, and I've seen even some things I wasn't supposed to see. I've seen when they make phone calls and make suggestions about who shouldn't get a job, and she's not on the hiring committee, but her homegirl is. I've seen them make calls and especially in regard to Black men. I've seen them curtail careers. I've seen them instigate false charges. I've seen them initiate hirings and start the hiring meetings by saying we are hiring a Black woman regardless of what the letter of the law is, regardless of what anybody has to say. I've seen them operate to the expense of others, particularly Black men, for their own advancement, for their own benefit. And I've seen them do it across corporations. I've seen them do it across universities to other universities. I've seen it play out. And I think you're right. When it comes to, more and more access, I think Black men in particular are going to find ourselves vulnerable to something we're not even talking about in advance. So, hold tight, Uru. I want to get to Dr. Thunder, and then I'm going to open up some stuff. And like I said, I want you all to respond to. But Dr. Thunder, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's happening?
You, man, how you doing?
Yeah, you better not. You better vote for Big Mama.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't mess with Big Mama. Yeah, this is Killer Cam is a white liberal in blackface. And when I say blackface, I don't mean black in the American political context of that word. I strictly mean phenotype. I mean, we know that she's not what we would call FBA or ADOS, and she's got two white daughters that call her Mamala.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's more in tune with, you know, with white folks, with, you know, and so she's not going to advocate for things that are, you know, really for black people in general, and certainly is not going to advocate for stuff for black men. She's married to a white man. She qualifies in the same way that Ketanji Brown Jackson qualified. You know that the finalists for, you know, that appointment, I think it was like 9 out of the 10 of them, black women married to white men. You know, they're clearly looking for a certain thing. They want these black women to kiss the ring and show allegiance by marrying a white man, by being married to a white man. And so in her case, it actually works out for her that she's married to a white man. As you put it earlier, it would not have worked out for Barack Obama if he was married to a white woman. So, yeah, this whole thing is silly. And you know, I'm in academia like you are, and I've, you know, we've had a couple phone calls where I went into detail about how certain things that I've said, not even things that are said in the classroom, has stuff that has nothing to do with my job, my teaching, my devotion to my students, my support of my students, nothing to do with any of that kind of stuff. They can't claim, there's nothing there for them to claim.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff that I have said on social media that they don't, you know, that they don't like, not because even that, I mean, you know, I'm not calling people names. I mean, yeah, I just called her Big Mama. I know, but but I'm not like calling people's names. I'm not belligerent or aggressive. I'm not calling for violence or anything like that. I just have a different perspective, a different worldview than they do, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough to just have a different opinion and be respectful about it. They literally want you to co-sign, kneel, kiss the ring, and say exactly what it is that they're saying.
Right. With no pushback.
With no pushback. And that's been the most disappointing. That has been the most disappointing thing about my academic career. Because I believed that when I was getting into academia, it was going to be this opportunity to, you know, to have interesting conversations with folks that had different perspectives, and, you know, perhaps, you know, the argument is heated at times, but, you know, everybody is, you know, behaving with respect and, you know, and admiration and all this kind of stuff. No, this is a bunch of folks that, if you are heard or seen, if you're seen with the wrong folks, if you're heard saying things that are not keeping with the orthodoxy, then they'll smile in your face and shake your hand, and then do everything that they can behind the scenes to try to block your success.
Yep.
It is completely and totally, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the opposite of brave. What am I? It's cowardice.
Cowardly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cowardice. You know, I've had faculty members got on my social media, got offended, didn't come straight to me to come talk to me and say, hey, you know, I just, you know, I wanted to make sure I understood, you know, what it was that you were saying. I mean, I was going to tell them to jump in the lake either way, I suppose. Maybe that's why they didn't come to talk to me. But but they don't come in to discuss this with you, man to man or woman to man or whatever it is. They go behind your back, report it to your supervisor, go to academic affairs, you know, get students to 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 jack up your evaluations, your anonymous student evaluations and stuff. They do all this kind of nefarious behind the back stuff, and it's just real. It's like I said, that's been the most disappointing thing about my academic career, and it's wrapped up in what we're seeing here. I mean, it's the same thing that we're seeing here with folks lining up behind Kamala Harris, someone that has done nothing, has proven nothing. She's not a serious person. Okay, she's not a serious person. She didn't do anything other than I'm not going to say what she did to get where she is. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to say.
All right. Appreciate that. Let me see. I'm going to get to a couple of brothers I don't know very well, and I'm trying to clear some space too for Mr. Z. But let's go with Alan. Alan, can you hear me? Alan, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Somebody dropped out, but Alan is not responding. So I'm gonna take you down, Alan. Hit me in the back chat if and when you get your sound together. Nate, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. I've been following your show for a while, and everybody made great points. And the brother who had that Fortune 500 company, he made great points as well. But I'm from Atlanta, and I live in Atlanta and in Mexico for the last 2 years, right? And what I've seen on the border is eye-opening, and it shocked me. And I started doing more research into what's happening. And I'll link it to like gentrification, right? And we see the massive impacts that happened with our Black communities. This immigration thing is that on steroids. And when they come over and say, hey, I'm a refugee, right? In 90 days, they can apply for a work visa, they can apply for that man job that worked for that company, right? So when he stepped down from his company, right, they can just hire a person who just came across the border to replace his position very easily, legally. So they're not just illegal people coming, they're like legal work visas at this point. Okay. And that's what I've been kind of seeing down here. It's been every mall that you go into, they have the English classes. My aunt, she just got let go about 4 months ago because they outsourced to a Mexico company, right? And if Kamala gets reelected again, 30 million or 20 million people came in the last 3 years. It's just going to be that on steroids. Okay. And it's mostly, I didn't believe it until I took an airplane from San Antonio to Atlanta. 80% of the plane were from refugees and young men, like 20 to 30 years old. And it was shocking to me. It's like we give them resources, and I feel like it's like a feminist agenda. A lot of feminists, they don't like American men like that, and sometimes they do travel overseas to to Africa, Nigeria to find a husband. Well, now they're just bringing him up over here, Okay. And it's like a power dominance type of thing, but it's having huge impacts on our communities. I mean, I do work for a tech company, but I do have my own business on the side as well. And they're getting in the telecommunications industry I work in, they're getting massive contracts with these companies, AT&T making $50,000 a week. These immigrants, and they hire 100 Guatemalans illegally. So they're making a lot of money that a lot of people don't realize that I've seen. So I mean, it would be extremely, extremely devastating if Kamala gets in there. I don't like Trump like that, but he's going to do something about the border and the Black communities. I think that's what we need. You see what's happened in Chicago, New York. You see what happened in California. The population of the Black community in California decreased. versus the last 20 years. So that formula that Kamala has and California has, it's going to be spread across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I landed there, and I just want to make that point.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna take you down. I'm trying to bring in some more people. We still got a couple people in the back chat that need to come up, but I appreciate what you dropped in, Nate. Thank you. Let me see. All right, so let's go ahead with Oside. Oside.
I can speak when you're ready, Dr. T.
Hello,
right.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, Oside.
Yes. It's a pleasure to speak with you, Dr. T. So I actually texted you in the chat a couple months ago. I'm not sure if you've noticed or picked up on this, but all the conversations that the other men have been speaking about is all leading back to one thing, and that's economics. With Kamala Harris, she's just not good for this country at all, and that's putting it mildly. I don't want to get too out of hand for YouTube, but I've got some choice words for her. Also, with Black females, I don't understand the mentality. There seems to be this degenerate mindset of obsession with white males. These same men who would have done terrible things to them back in slavery, and they seem to be gravitating towards that. There seems to be a war with them towards us, and I don't understand what the mentality is. But if you look at these divestors and swirlers, it never ends well for them. And I actually created a website for Black men because I have a bachelor's degree. I'm working on my master's, and like the gentleman just said, the Black population from California has decreased. I'm one of those people actually, because I've had to basically leave because there's no jobs in California. There are negative 347,000 jobs. I can't find a high-paying job. I had to go to Texas just to survive. I'm in Dallas, Texas now. So it comes down to economics, as you already know. A Black male with a bachelor's degree is as good as a white male felon with a high school diploma, if he even has that. We as Black men, we got to basically create a network or have a network and come together. I've done that. I've actually created a website. I put it in the text. I chatted with you I chatted with you like 3 months ago or 6 months ago. Called if you could write it down so you can look it up later on, because I want you to actually look it up and see for yourself, and contact me and see if I can put anything else up there. It's called the Black Male Economic Resource Page, and what it is basically, I've scoured the internet for hours looking for economic resources for Black males, because as you said earlier, there really isn't any. There are some, but some are simply there in name. They don't really do anything for us. It's just there just basically just to get money, or basically get funding, and they take the funding and then we don't get it. It's all being geared towards Black females, and I mean they have nothing to show for it. They say that they're the most educated and that they're in college the most, but most of them they're not doing anything much with their college degrees. They're not prospering the way that they make themselves out to be. It's a lie. So I created basically a social media website for Black men to basically voice their opinions and to basically work together and help Black men get jobs. Because it's bad. We've been neglected. It seems like these Black females are out against us. I don't understand thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Mack. I don't understand what the mindset is, but I'm doing what I can to stand up for Black men, because I am one. And as you said, we're not these criminals. We're not these walking phalluses. We're not a bunch of pookies and rapists. I'm not no pookie or rapist. I've never been arrested by law enforcement. I was in law enforcement as a police explorer. A police explorer is a kid cop. So I mean, literally what they try to portray as Black males, especially young Black males in America, I literally don't exist according to them. Okay, I've never done drugs. I've never done alcohol. I've never smoked weed. And I'm not no square. It's just I never had a desire to be those things, because I saw what the stereotypes were, and I never wanted to get caught up on those stereotypes. That's like the worst thing to me. So I've strived hard, and I've been through hell these past couple of years because of these policies from liberal Democrats, how they work. They work against the Black race here in America, and it's like they're brainwashed. Black people are brainwashed to basically vote for them. We're seeing this again with Kamala Harris, and it makes no damn sense. Okay, what part of you get nothing from these people do you not understand? And I'm not saying run to the Republicans by any means. I mean, the Republicans are a bunch of racist pricks, a whole lot of them, but I'd rather deal with them where they say, hey, we don't like Black people like that. Whereas these Democrats, these white liberal Democrats, and Kamala Harris is one of them, smiles in your face, tells you what you want to hear, gets your vote and you get nothing for it. And every time you are worse off. Your race is worse off. Okay, they're saying that if things don't change by 2050, the black wealth is going to basically be worth what, like 0.0% or
2053, the black wealth will be zero.
yes, that. I mean, I don't believe that, because there's a lot of black males doing really good and being really prosperous, and they try to basically keep that hidden. But I mean, things are going to get worse and going to decline. That's why I created that website. And like I said, I went through I literally went through every state looking for what I could for black males. And if you're there, there's black owned banks on there. There's I'm basically like giving people like advice. I've had insurance companies reach out to me and say, listen, we'll back your guys if they come to us. They just got to tell us that they're from your site. Everything that I could find to basically help out black men, and I'm still doing it. I'm actually going to start putting out AI videos. And one's going to be about Kamala Harris using her husband, basically talking down on her. It's going to be funny. But I mean, I'm going to go for broke because I'm sick of this. I got to stand up. I got to do something right. And I salute you, sir, for what you did. I salute Kevin Samuels. I have you guys actually honored on the page under Noble Black Men. So go there. You're there. Kevin Samuels, O.J. Du Jackson, and a couple others. I want to do what I can. This is like my last stand for my people. That's black men. Because for all you good black men out there, you're not Pookies and Ray Rays. They're trying to do the right thing. That don't fit into these stereotypes and are being shot down by the white man, his oppression. Now the black female oppression. I'm with you, and I will fight for you no matter what it takes, no matter what it costs. I'm here. So go to that website, all of y'all, especially you, sir.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna take you down because I'm trying to bring in one other person, and we're just gonna rock with what we got here.
By all means.
Meantime, all right, Mr. Z, and tell us what's going on, man.
Thanks for having me up, Dr. T. And Dr. T, I have to go at one of your other PhD brethren, Dr. Thunder. Listen, Dr. Thunder, Cameron is one of my favorite rappers. I'm gonna need you to find a new name for Kamala. I can't have you calling her Killer Cam, okay? That's Cameron's name. I'm gonna need that's Cameron's moniker. I can't have it, Dr. Thunder. But on a serious note, okay. Kamala is the apotheosis of what black women have been fighting for decades.
Mm-hmm.
She has no children. She has the white husband. She enjoyed her way to the top. Giggity. So she did not have to necessarily be the most talented. She just had to be at the right place at the right time and, have some fun. Kamala Harris, I want everybody to understand this. She can win. She can win, number one. Number two, to what the brother was saying earlier, it's a hard push to get human beings to drink bitter medicine. So when you say black people are brainwashed and you don't understand why they vote for the Democrats, no, they vote for the Democrats because the Democrats at least put on a good fashion show, right? The Republicans do not. It's a hard push to get any human being to go with the bitter pill, number one. Excuse me. Number two, neither party is necessarily offering much to black people writ large. Now, to black men specifically, do I think you can get Trump to budge on black boys and black men? That's a difficult one. Men in general, and then black boys and black men get something from that? Yes, right? J.D. Vance as being Trump's VP, I think he's a strong candidate. He does have some weird views on certain things, especially when it comes to his idea of like getting away from democracy. Yeah, right. So yeah, y'all heard right. So there's a lot to extrapolate and take apart from Kamala Harris and what she represents for women writ large, black women specifically, and what that means for black men. What it will mean for black men is you will have someone, as the brother was saying earlier, that black women can live vicariously through. And that will be enough for many of them. I would argue most. That will be enough. They don't need the politics. They need symbolism. Right? And what that means for us as black men having a Kamala in the White House and having her eeny, meeny, miny, mo, her cabinet positions, yes, the Black manosphere will be on the chopping block. I'll say we will be a pariah, and that we need to be careful going forward. I will not tone police us, but understand that as Kamala rises, is as you have random people do the street interviews with random brothers, as you have random brothers give their commentary, and people can hear Black manosphere talking points coming from those brothers, they're going to try to find out where these people are, who we are, and where these people are getting their rhetoric from. That is going to be a positive and a negative, right? That's going to be a positive and a negative. Excuse me. When random brothers are using Black manosphere talking points in man of the street interviews on why you are not supporting Kamala, right? That's going to put a target on our backs, and I would caution us from this point forward on the things we say and how we move. I'm not telling you to not still convey the message, but a target on your back from the lead executive, from the chief executive, they can make you squirm. And I'll give one example, and I'll pause after this. There was a point where Bill Clinton was going at Bill O'Reilly, and he put the IRS on Bill O'Reilly, and everybody knew that the IRS was going after Bill O'Reilly because of Bill Clinton, but he couldn't prove it, right? So I would caution us moving forward. But Kamala, her policies for the most part are standard issue milquetoast Democrat policies. She's not going to do anything for Black people. She's not going to do anything even specifically for Black women. And I think at the end of this will be the shredding of Black women, because after Kamala is president, you can no longer, as a Black woman, play intersectionality politics. You will no longer be able to play victim of Black men and white women. And what that's going to do is bankrupt Black women. That the social cachet that they're able to keep on cashing in, that moral high ground and moral pedestal that they continue to be able to cash in, with Kamala, not only will you not be able to do that because how high she will have risen, but because we already know she's going to continue much of the U.S.'s foreign policies. We already know much of the wealth inequality is going to continue under her, et cetera, et cetera. That will bankrupt Black women from being able to play this moral high ground post Kamala if she does get into the White House. And that's going to hurt them far worse than anything I think they can imagine. And I want us to be prepared for that also if Kamala does win. And I'll pause right there. Thank you for having me, Dr. T.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Mr. Z, your what time is your show and what days? Let people know.
My show is random.
Okay.
Thank you for asking me, Dr. T. My show is random. Sometimes I'm streaming a little bit before Dr. Thunder. Sometimes I'm streaming at the same time as Dr. Thunder. Sometimes I'm streaming before the Roger Report. So it could be 7:30 East Coast time. It could be 8 o'clock. I could do a random afternoon stream at 2:35 in the afternoon East Coast time. I could do a random stream at 8:45, 9 o'clock at night East Coast time. But y'all just stay paying attention to the notifications. And thank you, Dr. T, for asking me that question. Thank you very much.
Man, Ed, support the Mr. Z channel, man. Appreciate it. I'm gonna let Marcus and then Ralph drop a word, and then I'm gonna throw something and open it up for y'all to engage all together. So let's go with Marcus. Marcus, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me aboard. Dr. T, I actually, most of the time I listen to your shows that don't replace. So it is an honor to actually share the platform with you, as well as I listen to a lot of other people who, quite frankly, I would say that they speak for me. That would be your BGS, your Black Guru, of course. Charles Faulkner may remember me particularly. I believe it was last year. He had a show, I believe it was in the late hours. I mentioned to him, I'm the guy that had the stroke 5 years ago. So that may be, I'm fine now. I'm fine now.
Okay.
But that's me. So your show, particularly today, is ironic on July 31st. This is actually my last day in the debt finance industry. Quite frankly, the numbers didn't work, so I got to move on. But when it comes to Black support, I find it ironic, and I'm sorry if I sound emotional and I'm pissed. I'm sorry. If just from the Black people I talk to, if I had a 60% success rate with the people I talk to, and my service isn't for everyone, but for the people that it makes sense, if I just had 60% of those people that I talk to actually go into service to actually help them and their families, I would be in the six figures.
Okay.
But then on top of that, usually the worst that I talk to, and of course people are very stressed out when it comes to their finances, $20, $30, $100,000 in just credit card and personal loans, is the people I talk to. Usually the worst ones with the worst attitude and taking things personal to me are the PW.
Okay.
Ironic. And it's also sad to say that my biggest book of business came from the ones that I don't share the same skin.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it is a sad situation because now it's time to go ahead and move on. And I talked to a brother, just to make a short story, to give you guys an example of what I deal with. I talked to a brother on Monday. This gentleman had, since 2020, his financial situation was so bad, he took out 5 new credit cards. 2 of those credit cards, 60 days late, 2 or more, 90 days late. He also has 4 loans that he also has trouble paying. He paid the inquiry to my company, and we're talking because he's looking for help. He only thinks, I just want another loan. I want another loan with a better interest rate. While all this other time he's drowning. I'm reaching out my hand to try and help him. And by the way, it's already too late for me to get paid for this service. Dr. T, I can tell you, I almost begged this guy to just go with this service.
Now
he told me, nah, he don't believe it. You don't believe it.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Now, is this related to the discussion on Kamala? Are you coming to that? Or
I was just talking about. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I'm coming back to. So after dealing with this gentleman, and now my finances have taken a chance, have taken a dip. I now have to go Uber to go get help to make my ends meet. And ironically, that very next morning, I pick up a brother. And I started a conversation talking about football and everything. But next thing you know, he's talking about, we need to support this Kamala Harris. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. And I need to support because I'm Black. Why do I have to support Kamala just because I'm Black? But when I need the Black community to support Black professionals such as myself, I get your aid to kiss. That's what I find around. You want me to turn around and help you, but you don't want me to help you. You don't want to help me. And at the same time, my services help you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful point. And I think Black men writ large can ask that very question in the same way with the same degree of intensity, because nobody so far has been willing to articulate what Black men get for doing this. And we hear this every 4 years. Shut up and vote. Shut up and vote. Democrat, shut up and vote Democrat. That's what we hear. But nobody ever speaks to what exactly Black men get for doing so. That's it. So I appreciate that. Hold tight. I'm gonna bring Ralph in, and then I'm gonna throw some stuff at y'all. So Ralph, drop a word real quick on this. You hear me?
Hey, can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hey, man, how y'all doing, man? Thank you, Dr. Johnson, everybody on the panel, man. It's an honor to be on this panel with you all. And I just want to say on the topic that the first time I heard a separation of Black women from the Black community was around Obama time, and I was listening to a podcast, and it was a white podcast, and it was saying what are the issues of the Black community and the Black woman. And then I fast forward because that made me start paying attention, so I started fast forwarding and kind of following along. And then it got to Hillary Clinton, and Black women got behind her about no real policies when you start questioning them about, what is it that at the time Hillary Clinton was going to present, and they didn't really care about policy. They didn't care about, what she's bringing to the table. Just vote because she's a woman. And now we fast forward up to this point with Kamala Harris, and we know some of her track record, especially in California, how she did some of the black men, and as when she was a attorney general. And I think with that type of power that she may have, or she will have, I think it's going to be worse than what it was. If she was doing things that wasn't right, like holding evidence or holding information, holding documents, stuff like that, I think that's going to be a big problem, because now she's going to surround herself with people that's going to put in legislation or going to draw up legislation that they vote on that impacts mostly women. It's not going to even impact black men or men in general. And it's like, what's the question? Like, who she's surrounding herself with. And because, like, right now, there's no policies on the table. There's no police reform policies. There's no economic policies. There's no educational policies. There's nothing. And it just seems like something that you had did on a video about black women and that mothering perspective that they have. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a mothering type of presidency that she's going to kind of blend in with just being the president. But when it's because black men are in the black community are considered the number one people who are committing most of the crimes, and so she's going to try to find a way. I know for sure, not by her hand, but somewhere indirectly, she's going to find a way to, fix it the way she can mother us into getting us correct and try to get us in line. But Republicans are no better, and ironically, in the Project 2025, there's something about getting rid of child support, but I don't think it's in the way that's beneficial for the child. But it's something that's it's a Trojan horse, kind of got that carrot dangling out there for you to bite it. So it's like I don't see Kamala Harris doing anything to help black men, and I think black men gonna suffer a lot. Me as a truck driver, I'm a truck driver, and I've been truck driving since 2014. And when I first started, man, I did not see a lot of women driving trucks, and now I see a whole bunch of women driving trucks, and they're getting further along in this trucking than men are, even especially black men in this trucking industry. So I just think all the issues of what black women have and what women have, I think they all are going to be highlighted. And reproductive health. I mean, it's all going to be highlighted. And I think that we in trouble. I just say, man, try to find your way to understand what's going on and prepare yourself for what's going on and protect yourself, legally, financially, just trying to find a way, because, man, it's something coming. And I land right there.
All right. Appreciate that, Ro. Appreciate that. All right. So let me throw this at y'all. So this is something that I was sent just before the show. Right? Just before the show. Hold on. Let me. Okay. So, on the question of Kamala as president, you got this tweet here. It says, when Kamala Harris tweeted about hosting the first ever White House meeting of men of color entrepreneurs last year, it got like 10 likes, but y'all want to see actions. The meeting was in May and August. She issued over 125 million in grants to help these men, right? So I decided to look into this, and I really want y'all to weigh in so we can kind of examine it as a group. But hold on, let me pull up what I was able to in just the moment before the show. Let me just bear with me 1 second here. Oh, come on, there we go. Here it is. So this is the article that's kind of dealing with it. And this is Essence. This is dated May 17th, 2023. And so you can see the pictures. There's another one in here as well. That's the one that you see in the tweet. So apparently you have over 30 black male entrepreneurs and Kamala in the center, right? But It reads, Vice President Kamala Harris convened more than 35 men of color entrepreneurs and small business owners at the White House on Tuesday. Latest in a series of events Harris has held to discuss the myriad resources and opportunities offered by the administration. Since taking office, the Biden administration has seen record growth of small businesses and entrepreneurship with more than 10.5 million new small business applications in the last 2 years. The White House has also launched a governmental initiative which amounts to $100 billion investment in business with minority owners. Right? Now, remember, generically speaking, white women are classified as minorities. So just to put that in context, researchers at Babson College. What was that?
I said I wish somebody would have told me about this.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We see in a second. I'm going to get your opinion in a minute. Researchers at Babson College show how this investment can be critical. Their analysis on entrepreneurship found that Black entrepreneurs start business at higher rates than other groups, yet they are more likely to be in the lowest third of household incomes. At the convening, Vice President Harris delivered opening remarks talking about the realities for small businesses owned by people of color, which is access to capital, access to markets, access to consumers, access, and what we can do to facilitate and better improve access so that you can be out there to compete. Now, I'll put the link for this in the chat, and I will also try to remember to put it in the description box after the show is over, so you guys can look at it at your own leisure. But I also decided to kind of look a little further in the whole question of the $125 million investment in what was said in the article, these men. So let's see. I think this is it here. All right, so this is it. This is a fact sheet from August 2023. As the tweet said, this is a month later, right? And the implication was that the resources went to the men that attended that meeting. It says, fact sheet, Vice President Harris to announce support to help historically underserved entrepreneurs tap into Bidenomics, fuel small business boom. Is in bold here, it says today, Vice President Kamala Harris will announce the 43 winners of the $125 million American Rescue Plan funded Capital Readiness Program. Awards competition, critical funding that will help underserved entrepreneurs launch and scale their small businesses, a key pillar of Bidenomics. Now, I want you to be very careful here when it comes to reading this language, because we went from men of color and minority-based meeting to a month later to underserved entrepreneurs. Don't know what that means. It can mean a lot of different things, but just to be clear, CRP is the latest American Rescue Plan investment in navigation and support services for small businesses, building upon $300 million in funds already announced or deployed through the Small Business Administrators Community Navigator Program and the Treasury Department's State Small Business Credit Initiative. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the United States has seen the strongest showing for new business applications on record, 12.6 million. And recent reports show that the U.S. is continuing that trend in 2023, a sign of confidence from entrepreneurs that Bidenomics is working. Vice President Harris will announce the awards, again, to the 43 businesses, right, for $125 million, apparently, while visiting a local D.C. minority-owned retail village. So you hear minority, but that's just where she's going to announce the awards while visiting. So I'm going to skip down to this paragraph here, and then I'm going to show you the names of the businesses that are there. So it says the 43 winning organizations, a mix of nonprofit and community-based organizations, private sector entities, and institutions of higher education located across the country are forming partnerships to assist and train underserved entrepreneurs seeking resources, tools, and support to start or scale their businesses in high-growth, high-wage industries such as healthcare, climate-resilient technology, asset management, infrastructure, and more, right? So I'm going to skip down so we can see some of the names of the winners, right? So you got the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Bridgeway Capital, right? Let's see here. It's the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, Georgia, Northern Great Lakes Initiative, the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council in Silver Spring, Maryland. Right, they have a full list of CRP winners there. It says, okay, so that's just the short list. Let's see. They have a fuller list. Now, this is interesting because on the page where they have the fuller list, I want you to see how this website is laid out. So there we go. Right? Implication being, this must be Black men. Right? These are the awardees of the Capital Readiness Program. Competition winners. Let's go to that. Let's see. Okay. So there you go. So they have apparently some of these organizations win in multiple states. So Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Asian Pacific Islander Chamber of Commerce, Benedict College, Bridgeway Capital, Business Outreach Center Network, Inc., California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, Capital Region Minority Supplier, CIC Innovation Services, College of Southern Nevada, Community Development Venture. You guys can look at this list. Right. So the implication from the first webpage we went to is that she met with Black male business owners, and that there was in the text implied, or the tweet implied, that out of that 125 million, that many of the men in that circle were likely to benefit. Now that was only about 35 odd people, I think, and there's only 43 organizations that won awards. But when you listen to these organizations like the Women's Economic Self-Sufficiency Team, Corp and Incubator and Accelerator Service Area in New Mexico, how many of these do you think actually went to Black male focused businesses and programs? How many of them went to Black males especially and were targeted as such? Right? So the implications that we're seeing here in terms of those who won don't seem to suggest any extreme investment in Black men. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to ask y'all what your thoughts are on, Kamala in regard to resources being extended to Black men. Anybody?
Well, I kind of got confused because initially you presented that she supposedly had met with businessmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these monies are going to these not-for-profit Chamber of Commerce or whatever outfit. I mean, none of these appear on the surface to be actual businesses themselves.
Exactly.
They appear to be go-betweens.
Yes.
And when I have some professional experience in this area, I mean, this is just buying influence. This is buying influence with people who have positions strategically to influence, the perception of the Biden Harris, now Harris, I guess, or prospective Harris administration. So I don't see on the surface how this has actually really benefited any businesses. We're not even talking about Black businesses. I'm not even sure about what businesses at all are being helped with this particular setup.
Well, let me ask you this. If this did benefit Black male entrepreneurs in some extreme manner, do you think that they would have foregrounded that in the news to sell that?
They would have sold it like crack on a corner.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And the sad part is, I'm not that far from DC. You didn't hear a damn thing about this. And to put a Black man on the face of this, but most of the companies, Eastern Shore, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is actually at HBCU, which is funny, but majority of the places that received the funds were Asian companies. Think about that.
So that's what I was going to say, Charles. That's what I was going to ask. Are they using Black men and men of color interchangeably?
Yes.
Was it just me catching that? Okay. So and that's another thing to catch. Like, okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me that was, Black Uru said much of what I wanted to say, but far more articulately. But I noticed that they were using Black men and men of color interchangeably, and we already know that tactic. So, excuse me, if we get a couple of pennies, then count our lucky stars, right? So, and I'll pause right there.
Right. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm in Alabama, man. And the nearest if it was towards black business, the nearest one is in Atlanta. So that means I would have to travel to Atlanta or get on their website. And one thing I learned about getting on some of these program websites, sometimes you get stonewalled.
Mm.
You can't go further into the information to either get a form or to get a phone number or to get something to apply. And but this is I just think this is pandering. And I want to ask a question. Since these are nonprofits, do this money kind of circulate back to the government?
If not directly, I think Black Guru spoke to the kind of relationships it establishes or reinforces under the table.
I mean,
right?
that's essentially what happens. I mean, the question I would also, I mean, a couple of questions I would have. Okay, what's the actual source of the money behind this program? And then, you know, what sort of reporting is required to, you know, justify and maintain access to the sources of these funds? I mean, usually these presumably government-based programs have some reporting requirements, certain performance indicators that are necessary in order to justify the continuation of the program. So I'd be interested in knowing, okay, what part of the government is funding this program and what sort of reporting requirements are, which presumably would include some specifics regarding who these funds are being, what entities these funds are being issued to.
Exactly. And this is the level of savviness that we need to get to when we're analyzing this. Because you notice in the tweet that I shared with you, the first thing I showed you, the guy said she met with Black male entrepreneurs. A month later, she extended 125 million to many of those men. But when you actually just scratch the surface of that, that's not, you know, none of that looks like the case, you know. But this is the kind of game.
It looks like a bait and switch. I mean, it looks like a bait and switch. Yeah. I mean, it looked like they used the first group of men as bait to lure and to gain and gravitate some degree of credibility, but then actually shifted the funds to some wholly different entity.
Exactly.
So you got catfish by Kamala, huh?
and people who are calling for us to vote for her. But this is what we're being sold. You know what I mean? This is what we're being sold. So we have to be very savvy. And one of the ways to really get more quickly to some degree of savviness is having your own agenda. You know, this was a brother I was talking to yesterday. He was saying, well, we gotta vote for Kamala so that we can have a seat at the table. And I said, well, even if that were true, what good is a seat at the table if you don't have an agenda for yourself? Everybody else around you is very clear why they're there, including Black women. Black women are very clear. But you could just going from BLM to Kamala, you can see a very distinct pattern of Black women trying to advance their position. This has been, in many respects, there have been levels of it. There's been an overall feminist coup. There's been a Black feminist coup, but they are very clear about acquiring power.
And the sad part about it, they'll do it over the backs of Black men.
Yes.
And the bodies and graves of Black men as well, with no shame.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Well, the real shame is we happily allow and enable them to do it. The men who attended that conference and allowed themselves to be used as a PR stunt. That's what they're doing there, in case you all don't know it. Every time you go and appear and support the jokers that did 40,000 guys or whatever on that conference call, that's what they're doing. You know, all these things that Black men do, all this hoopla and rallying around, we must support the sister, the Divide Nine, all this. That's what we're all doing. We're providing them the bodies to walk on, y'all.
Right. You know what's funny? Over when Obama ran, oh, no nigga ain't gonna be president. We as long as if you got an XY chromosome and you got Black skin, nobody has faith in you. But we got to support somebody, and people quickly. This is the reason why we say Black community got short memories. We'll quickly will quickly vote for a person who literally cuts your hand off and then hand you a bandage and then wonder why you're looking at them crazy when you should be grateful. I gave you a bandage. And right there, look at the companies. Look at the companies right here. Do you really think this person who's cosplaying as a black woman, Indian woman, Kryptonian something, we still trying to figure out what she is, and she's going to have your best interest? She's Mystique of the X-Men comics. She just takes this shape and form of what is needed to get her way. She has no real allegiance to anybody but herself.
So I just went down the rabbit hole on one. I just randomly picked one of the companies on that list just from what you were showing, Dr. T. And this M. Gill and Associates. So the first thing that popped up was a bunch of Keishas and a few and a few other women on there. And even when you look at the visuals, that the way that the page is designed and laid out, all you see is black women that I suspect to be immigrants on there. So I dug a little bit deeper into another one and another website popped up, the Florida MBDA Export Center. And one of the main things that popped up that I noticed, Caribbean Heritage Month.
Okay.
So once again, it's the old banana in the tailpipe, smoke and mirrors. When you dig a little bit deeper, you start to see this has nothing to do with black men. It is island Keishas that are going out and getting this money. And one of the main things that made me really dig a little bit deeper is I saw a lot of stuff that said like export, and import. So when you start to look, you know what I mean? When you start to look, even by the facial features, I was like, these are either Nigerians or these are like Jamaicans or people from the islands or something. But they had the divestment wigs and the strong make the cake soap. and when you keep looking, it's just another trick bag, man. On the surface, you got Kamala Harris surrounded by a bunch of brothers in suits, right? And when you move that out of the way and you start to and this took me every bit of about 2 minutes.
Exactly.
And you can clearly see that this has nothing to do with black men. They were the face of this so-called money that was supposed to be going out. But when you actually start to look closer, you see that it's still funneled to the same women and immigrants. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's another trick bag.
So you just answered the question about what a Kamala presidency would look like for black men.
Yep.
So symbolism with no substance sounds about right.
It's women and immigrants. No substance, but a lot of bait and switch. And at the end of the day, black men get their face in a picture on a website, but resources go to established groups who are creating relationships and reinforcing relationships with the executive office behind the scenes. But go ahead, you were going to say
and the only connection you may have is the extent to which you're willing to submit to the nearest Keisha. If you submit to the nearest Keisha, that's how you participate tangentially to what's really going down. You don't directly yourself have any power or influence over anything. You at best have some connection to some woman who has some connection to some other woman who's really making some decisions over something.
But I got a question about this whole thing because, you asked the question, where's this money coming from? Because the thing that I've been looking forward to in this election is September, when the new fiscal budget is published. And we've been talking about austerity or, inflation and things like that. Austerity a little bit. Basically, we've been saying that we've already hit the financial wall. So where's this money coming from? Because somebody already mentioned them talking about ending child support, which you may say it's not going to happen, but it makes sense because child support comes out of the Social Security Fund. That's where they get their matching dollars from. And if the Social Security Fund is running out, then, it's hard to match those funds with the states. So that's the question that I have, because basically, even if Kamala is a lame duck, what I do suspect is that there will still be socially a greater deleterious effect on society, especially, when it comes to like the rise of women judges in criminal and family court, as well as civil courts. And we've already seen the deleterious effects that it has on fathers and then by extension, children, namely boys. And so I think there's going to be an inevitable effect on the country that we may not immediately see, but what we're going to see is a piling on of the damage that's already been done based on what has already happened.
Yeah, when you look, oh, excuse me, when you look at the rhetoric that's going to come from something like this, when they say they don't see black men progressing, it's going to be one of the things that they're going to look at and say, well, you black men got X amount of money, millions for your black businesses, and why you are not progressing the way that you should. But then when you do a deep dive, you see that the money's not even going to the places where it can bring economic development to black men or black business or even black people in general. So this is also a PR thing that they can use to continue to whoop black men and whoop men with.
Let me say this. I think did Uber ever break a profit? Do we know? How long did it take for Amazon to break a profit? Okay, $125 million out of 30 people, 30 men of color, which we don't know how many black men are including in that. And that's just a one-time $125 million. I'm going to say this, that ain't no real money.
No, it's not.
And that's exactly one of the things that I forgot to mention. I'm glad you said that. And not only is it, you're talking about fighting over pennies, really, but we can clearly see with this list of organizations, those brothers, if they are listed in the 43 odd winners, they're in a small minority of that.
Yes.
A small one of that. Right. Whereas the tweet we saw implied that most of these men benefited and were able to secure this. You had 35 men in the room with her taking pictures. Then you had about 43 organizations that got part of that 125 million. I think this is very much what black men can expect in general. But this is what I was trying to say earlier. I said, if you actually look at how these resources are disseminated, even when black women benefit, how many have identified, how many of anybody has identified that black men are actually in need of being able to be advanced, being able to benefit from these resources? And in the last 4 years, from the pandemic to now, we've not heard anything targeted at black men directly. We need to go into any political engagement with an understanding of how we're treated, how we're seen, and regardless of these kind of public display, tweets or websites or whatever they may be, where they show pictures of us standing holding hands with her or holding a tablet and looking like something's been achieved in a picture on a website, what has actually been extended to black men? And if we can't clearly say what that's been, we need to be very clear about what our political interests are.
Real quick, Charles, I'm gonna move out your way in 30 seconds. So what everybody on the panel is telling me is that the Democrats have adopted Nixon's benign neglect and essentially sell them on positivity concerning black people writ large, black men specifically. So you take pictures that would lead someone to believe that we're doing real work here. They're not. We're pushing positive imagery where we are sprinkling just a couple of pennies on the table to make it look like we are helping to progress black men. But in actuality, this is all just a PR stunt showing a progress that never was. Okay, I'm just making sure that we got everything straight. Okay, I'm just making sure. Go ahead.
Never would happen.
That's a long 30 seconds. But I'm going to just say that, what they're giving you is clear in front. They're ass to kiss. They're not giving you, I'm going to say this. I've said this 4 years ago. I don't care. If you're actually going to tell me you care, I'm not talking about the guys you are mating, dating, and screwing. What about the men that you're birthing? Do you even give a damn about how they're going to go through life? But as soon as you ask for your piece of the pie, notice you'll see everybody else with crumbs on their mouth with some of the apple crust on them, and like, hey, there's no pie left. What about that $2 billion you gave to that country? What $2 billion? It's all politics and politics. There's not a damn thing. I bet you after she took that picture, she probably sprayed herself with Lysol.
Oh damn!
Like I bet you it basically made her so nervous. And it's crazy because I'm supposed to listen to a woman with no kids, who has the racial identity of a chameleon, to tell me how to raise my kid. What support is my child gonna get?
Now we're coming up on the 3-hour mark, so we're gonna shut it down very soon. But I do want to share one quick clip and kind of put some context to this before we close out, and I want to get you guys to comment on it as well. Now, this is from the Win with Black Men live discussion that Roland Martin had, a 4-hour fundraising that he did last week, and I think it raised over $1.5 million in a few hours, and they were bragging about how they got to over 1 million faster than the night before when Black women were donating. But there is one clip out of this from a gentleman where he said something that I want us to ponder on for a moment. So this is here we go. Yeah, so this is it. I don't know if you guys are going to hear this, so just tell me if you can hear it when I do this real quick.
Roland, what's good, man?
Okay, were you guys able to hear that?
Yeah.
Clear.
All right. So this is I'm gonna let him introduce himself. I'm only gonna play his piece of this, but as you can see, this is 4 hours and 10 minutes of Black men who are advocating for Kamala. Now he's in a position where he's acknowledging how Black men have been perceived even when they vote the way they're told to vote. But at the same time, he's advocating for Kamala. But I want y'all to hear something he has to say about this that I think is important for this discussion. Here we go.
All good. You're on the clock. Can you hear me, Roland? Yes. All right. You're on the clock. Yo, listen. All right. Well, listen. The clock is not as important as me setting the record straight. And let me start by saying that regardless of what anybody tell you, Black men will already guarantee be the second highest voting demographic for Vice President Harris, regardless. Let's just start there. So when people are already talking about what Black men need to do, I think we're already behind the 8 ball on that because we're forgetting all the weight that Black men are carrying. They keep saying we don't do our part, but they forget to tell you that Black men outperform everybody in Ohio in 2023 for women's right to choose. So when people are talking about Black men in this context, I want people to think about what science, not Mundell, not Black Male Voter Project, but what science tells you on how to animate and motivate people to do something and form new habits. So if the new habit we want to form is more Black men that don't normally vote to participate in elections, we don't need to be adding negative informations about what it means to be Black man in the political space. So when people are creating judgment, animosity, or any chaos, you're not doing anything to help the Vice President own this extremely important moment. So here's what we need to do. There are 9.6 million Black men in this country that are already registered. 9.6 million. Of that 9.6 million, 54% have not voted in any of the last 4 federal elections or only one. That is not a critique of Black man. It's a critique of stealth tactics where we blame brothers even when we show up. I've heard people say that Black men are not a monolith. We are not a monolith, but we vote monolithic. And we should look at that as a code of honor because it says that we put community, we put people over ourselves because regardless of where you are geographically, regardless of where you are economically, Black men still show up and vote for our community. And if we're not acknowledging that, then we're not going to help brothers form a new habit and crack into that 3.5 million Black men who have already registered but not voted in the last 4 federal elections. So Mundell Robinson speaking on behalf of my organization, Black Male Voter Project, saying that we will do something that we've never done, and we will endorse in this election. And we will endorse Vice President Kamala Harris because it's necessary that Black folks show up in a way that says nothing will stand in our way in this moment.
All right. Okay. Now, I played that particularly for that breakdown, that numeric breakdown. So basically, he's saying the majority of registered Black male voters haven't voted in the last 4 or 5 elections, which is over 3.5 million Black men, right? A majority. I think that the majority of my listeners are of that number, as far as, because as he said, he's accurate. Black men tend to vote to the Democrat, the second highest degree behind Black women, and we suffer greater voter disenfranchisement than any other group, really, due to incarceration and so on and so forth. But what nobody talks about is that there are 54% of registered Black male voters that do not vote. And part of the reason for that, well, they say it's laziness, they say it's political ignorance, so on and so forth. I believe it's Black men who are not seeing their political interests met by either party.
It's political disenfranchisement.
I wanted to get your thoughts and comments on that. So at random, y'all tell us what you think.
It's political disenfranchisement. How long can you piss on my leg and tell me it's raining that I'm going to believe you? Everybody, it's like what I say about certain religions. When you see the white man getting heaven while he's still alive, the red man, the yellow man, the orange man, everybody else gets heaven, but you're being told you got to die to wait to see the heaven. That's a religion I don't need. And that's the same way I look at politics. Why does everybody else get these tangibles, things they can put their hands to it, money, resources, power, being the most accosted either through the criminal justice system or let's just say Jim Crow and slavery? Where's the Black male hate bill? Where's the protection for Black men? But Asian people are what the percent of them in this country?
Something like 7 or 8%, something like
7 and 8% of goddamn people could get more done. LGBT. but we should support everybody else. But where does all these groups support us? Somebody else go before I say something.
Well, I think even though we don't necessarily know it, all of us don't necessarily know it on a conscious level or, just sort of like a clear level. I think we, Black men, intuitively know that supporting the system supports our oppression. I think we intuitively know that. We know that when we work. We know that in our schooling. We certainly know that in our families. We know if we are have been connected with the military. We know that, ironically, the better we do, like the better I am as a professional basketball player, the wealthier the team owner gets, which then gives the team owner more money, more power, more political influence to then further oppress me. The NFL is a perfect example of that. I mean, is a perfect example of how splendid Black men are, and their greatness actually contributes to their oppression because they made these white men so fantastically wealthy. So
Dennis Sterling, anyone?
Yeah, exactly. So perfect example. So I think, not Dennis. What's his name?
Donald. It's Donald. I said it wrong. It's Donald Sterling. It was Donald Sterling.
Yeah, Donald Sterling. Yeah, Sterling was a perfect example of that. Sterling cleared what, $4 billion when they forced him to sell the Clippers to another uber billionaire white man, the Microsoft guy. So I think our vote is reflective of that basic primal knowledge that we're basically contributing to our own oppression and demise. And it's a what's that, the great fable term, Kobayashi Maru or whatever, Kobayashi Maru. It's this unsolvable kind of thing that how do you fix it? How do you liberate yourself in the system that's designed that the more you contribute to it, the more powerful you make it to oppression?
There is a solution for it, and in fact, Frederick Douglass spoke about it in I think it was 1852. Anyway, it was when he did his 4th of July speech. And actually what he was doing, I mean, y'all know the answer to this. Isn't this the answer that nobody wants to come to? Yeah, it was 1852, July 5th. The answer was violence. That was that was it, because that
And they
began the
hate him for that
American
still to this
experience.
day.
Exactly. And it's written all over that speech, but we're not in a position to really exercise that type of power. So what we have left is, of course, y'all know how cynical I am. I'm like, I don't trust anybody. I don't, black, white, don't care if they're in political office and they're lying and they're speaking, they're lying. So talking to somebody like me about voting, you might as well be talking to the wall. I'm going to vote, and I just may not vote because it's not that important to me at the federal level. It is important to me where I can see them and get to them.
Right. And he meant that shit.
Yes.
Anybody else? Reflections on video clip, the voting power of black men, percentage of black men not voting, and what that means?
Yeah, I found it funny how frustrated he was and how he had to kind of put a precursor up there before he started talking. It's not the first time I've seen this. I've seen it quite a bit. It's almost as if you know what's going on, but you're trying to fight against that mother goddess simp chip. You know what I mean? You know what's going on, man. So it's funny for those of us who know and for those of us who are aware. It's funny to watch them try and straddle that fence. You want to try and check what the real problem is without checking it too far, because you don't want to give up your butter biscuits and your catfish nuggets. So it's funny. It's funny to watch in real time. I put that link in the back. What I think that what's happening is you have the talking heads for the Democratic Party. They're coming out making as much noise as they can. Brothers like this one, who I give him one divorce and he'll probably be over here with us.
That's all it takes. You don't even got to do a divorce now. You just got to cut a chick off in traffic.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. It's funny to watch, man. I'll put that link back there. I saw a short on TikTok, and these guys were saying, these podcast dudes, these podcast guys, we're not these podcast dudes. We are new black men. And when you go to the site and you look at there it go. And you go to that values and you look at number 5. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Dr. T. And this is for the brothers who don't know, this is your immediate red flag. We are bonded with black women.
No, but I would argue, yes, we are attached by the hip. I make that argument all the time. No, black men and black women are attached by the hip. The problem is that one of us is inappropriately responding to the toxic environment because they wish they were white women. That's the issue that you have.
I gotta juxtapose
I'm not
that.
bonded to them.
And
I gotta challenge that for a second, because
go ahead.
we're not bonded. We just had a little bit of duct tape and it's coming off from the screens. Okay, because if we were truly bonded, a lot of in-house business would have stayed in the goddamn house like the man should.
I agree with that. No, I agree with that.
So we're not bonded.
Well, but
they try to guilt us to make us indebted, even though really, in reality, they're indebted to us. And it's about time black men start throwing that shit in their faces. You owe us, not the other way around.
So you know better than the thing. Real quick, I'm gonna let you in 30 seconds, probably 60. I don't disagree with you on that, Charles. What I am saying is that we are attached by the hip. I am about calling out the misbehavior, and I'm always about all that shame, blame, and explain. I'm SBE to the max, right? I am about saying, I told you not to go in that direction. Now look what happened to you. I'm all about doing that. So I am saying we are attached by the hip, and they're inappropriately responding. And when they fall off the cliff, and like I said with Kamala's going to drain all of that cachet that they've built up over the past 6 or so decades. That's gone after Kamala if she gets into that White House. I'm letting y'all know now.
And that's a small if.
Go ahead.
And that's a small if, number one. Number two. See,
We gotta let Dead Set go though.
We're gonna let Dead Set go, but I'm gonna be quick like this. First of all, for the past 60 years, black women have been projecting so much it ought to be on 4K IMAX. So everything about their insecurities, their fears, they try to put it. Y'all want white women? No, we don't. Y'all want us to be thin? Well, me and the floorboards would appreciate it, but we do like a little bit of body, not too much. Everything they talk about, it's their insecurities. And what's going to happen be after this, shame, guilt, insult to the need to be right is going to be strict indifference. We're not going to look at you as our women. We're going to look at you as a woman. And it's coming down the pipe very quickly. Go ahead, Dead Set.
I think that's the only advantage that we have because, excuse me, the thing that is natural to men in general is the thing that was stripped away. That's long been our monopoly on force. Of course, that monopoly on force is in the hands of other men who make these policies. So therefore, the only thing that's left is to abandon them. And, it's sad in its way because I've got black children. I want my children to see other black people prosper. I want them to see what black relationships looked like the one that I had with my first wife. But they're not going to experience that. In fact, a small example is I'm watching my son have a breakdown and then watching his sister and his mother yell at him and then neglect them. And I sit there with my heart breaking like, I'm going to kill both you bitches. And this is my 10-year-old daughter I'm talking about. And she's just reflecting what her mother is showing her. And I'm watching this boy suffer at 5 years old things that he can't even understand when all he needs is his dad there to stand beside him and say, yeah, son, it's all right. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, I would disagree with the brother who mentioned that we are joined with black women. I think a majority are, but not all of us. If the passing of Kevin Samuels and the reaction there, I know I've heard brothers specifically say that was it for them. I think once brothers start openly getting into conflict at the cookouts and at Thanksgiving and seeing the women's reactions, a lot of them, that was their come to Jesus moment. I think seeing in the workplace when you see the HR chick that looks like you, but is wholeheartedly dead set on your demise and your career, ending your career or making what should be an easy job hard. I think that has done it for a lot of them. I think the moment that brothers were able to look in their immediate purview, were to look at people who supposedly say that they love them, and the minute that they've disagreed with them, whether it be on political ideology, whether it be on traditional gender roles and stuff like that. Once you have brothers start to push back against the women that's supposed to love them, and the extent that they would go to destroy those men's character, to destroy their confidence, that's when a lot of it got snipped. You know what I mean? I think that what you will see over the next couple of years, because it's been a deregulated sexual marketplace, but brothers have been loyal for an extremely long time, and look at where it has got the community, right? Look at where we are. If our community was led by men, I can guarantee you, I'm not saying that we would be at the tip top, but I can guarantee you that we will be further along than where we are now.
We would.
You know what I mean? Because we understand the landscape and we also have to pay with our ass. If we make the wrong move, we got to pay with our hides, right? So I would just respectfully disagree there. What I will say is most black men are, but not all of them,
But I don't
I'm going to say this real quickly. I'm going to leave out. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Doctor. And great conversation like always. And if you're not subscribed to the Charles Faulkner Jr. Channel, please do so. And good night.
Right.
What I will say to Rince Turner is, I don't want us to. I think we've had a great impact in the Black manosphere over the past decade or so, but I don't want us to. And I agree with you that it's most. But I don't want us to underestimate how much most is, right? What I'm saying is, we are aware and we have a connection to Kevin. We have a connection to the Black manosphere that the masses of Black men, especially over a certain age, just don't have. Yes, they've had these experiences. Yes, they are tired of being mommied to. Yes, they're tired of being dictated down to. But they still do not resonate with us in that particular way. I don't want us to overestimate our impact also. So I'm agreeing with you that watching the fallout and how women responded, particularly Black women online, responded to Kevin's passing, did put a lot of Black men in that other mode, that mode of, oh, that's where y'all at, right? But I don't want us to overestimate how many brothers actually came to that conclusion and said, okay, you know what? Divorce, right? And when I say divorce, I mean divorcing the concept that Black men and Black women are one.
Okay, hold on.
Right, and I'll pause right there.
Now, Mr. Z, we're gonna start closing out. So I want you, if you have anything else you want to say, just make it your closing statement. Since you laid out some things, so I want you to close there, and then we'll just kind of go down the list. So anything else you want to say?
Thank you for having me up, Dr. T. I think that Kamala has a better shot than maybe some of us may think. I think it is Trump's election to lose. Still, I agree, but I don't want us to underestimate Kamala and the fact that she was able to raise how much, $200 and some odd million in a couple days, right? So I don't want us to and it's not just the money. You can still raise more money and lose. This is true, but I don't want us to underestimate how many people are gonna they want to absolve America of its air quotes racist past. They want to see a woman in the White House. And I don't know if anybody recalls Z saying this. I did tell y'all they would much rather have a Black woman in the White House first than a white woman. White men would rather see a Black woman in there than a white woman. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but they want to make sure they keep their women in line. They don't care about what's going on with Black women. And the fact that she's being green lighted by a white husband, it makes a sense to them in a backwards way, right? So I know it may not make sense to everyone that just heard what I said, but it makes sense. Like I just would caution us from underestimating Kamala's ability to maybe pull this off, right? And her team's ability to pull this off. We're not saying that she is necessarily politically astute the way even Obama was. We're not saying she's more talented. She's not. We're not saying any of that.
Right now.
Say that again?
She's the face of the party right now.
Exactly. And that means a lot to the party, right? So, and I don't think, once again, that she's going to do anything specifically benefiting the masses of Black women. I think whatever policy she does bring about or helps to pass, it will benefit a very select few of Black bourgeois, mainly Black women that are pretty much like her anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and what will that do for the masses of Black women? Well, they'll be told what they've been told for the past 60 years. Live vicariously through the handful of Black women who are highly educated, who are petite bourgeoisie, and who do the bidding of the dominant white society. And that's what they've been getting for the past 60 years anyway. So I think she just continues the same on that. I do think she may come at men like us. So I would caution us with that. But that's all. That remains to be seen, and that's all obviously dependent on whether she gets into the White House or not. If she doesn't get into the White House, we still got an issue, but they will be still looking at us like we're much of the reason why she didn't. Either way, right? And I'll pause right there, and thank you for having me up, Dr. T.
Went through. All right. So, unless somebody wants to jump in, I'll start with Ralph in terms of brief closing thoughts.
Okay, man. I've just listened to the great discussion, man, and what I'm starting to, based on that video and based on what I've heard, I'm starting to realize and understand that Black men presence with their analytical skills, their critical thinking skills, and their ability to, to have leadership is very much needed still in the Black community and still in the society. And it's one of the things, or one of the questions that I just put out there is like, how do we make this on the same level as the type of men that they are presenting in front of us, who are pandering, who are gaslighting, who are doing the things that it doesn't help the community and doesn't help Black men. How can we bring our abilities as men, as a collective men, like we have just broken down some of the things that we have seen with the grant money. It's like how can we bring it to light and how we can make it more impactful into the community, make it more impactful in the media. And I would just say that we just have to continue to individually, once we in our own personal circles and maybe in a bigger circle, really speak on these issues from an analytical point of view and really break this stuff down in a way that it makes sense to where, hey, look, take a closer look at these things and not just go off the emotion. Because what I'm seeing what the Democrat Party has done basically over the last 10, almost 20 years is they kind of just built themselves on a emotional system. It's no longer about the facts. It's no longer about the things that make sense. 1+1 = 2. Now it's 1+1 maybe equals 2 or maybe equals 3, but it's not the factual detail truth that we've seen in the past. So I would just say, black men, continue to sharpen your mind, continue to read, continue to study, continue to uplift yourself, make and improve yourself, and get in these spaces and really speak up and speak out on these things. And thank you, Dr. Johnson, for allowing me to be up here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How am I gonna go? Here's the issue that I have, and I think we overlook this too much. Men are, especially young males, they're acting on their biological imperative. That's one of the reasons why this problem is so intractable. So black men, men in general, are going to chase women. We know that. And most people chase people who look like them. So black men are going to continue to chase black women. So I don't think it's even suitable to even think that black men are going to completely abandon black women unless they're in situations like mine or something like that, where we've been run through the ringer and we're just like, you know what, I'm throwing my hands up, because young black males are not going to do that. They're going to chase tail. It's exactly what they're going to do. So I think we need to be more inventive in how we deal with this problem. Because regardless of what they're saying about, the diminished birth rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, women do not have to have a man's child to be able to manipulate a man. We already know that. So, and women will ride that knowledge that they have of men until the wheels fall off. So I think the problem requires a lot more imagination, and frankly, I think it's intractable. I think, like, unless we had the benefit of an established patriarchy before the end of slavery or around the end of slavery, or if enough time had passed for us to establish a patriarchy, we'd be in a different boat. But our culture is not built that way. So we don't have any foundation to stand on this issue. And I hate to sound like actually, I don't care. I am the ultimate I'm just cynical about the whole thing, because it's just like, from the evidence that I'm looking at, there is no change in this direction.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming through, man. And I'm still jealous of his cool ass voice, motherfucker. Anyway, appreciate it.
All right.
I'll holler at you, man.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Wrench Turner, drop us a word, man. Closing thoughts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First of all, appreciate you having me up, brother. Man, salute to all of the brothers that spoke their piece up on the panel, and the brothers that have been active down in the chat. It's been a great discussion. What I would tell the brothers is, some brothers said that they're going to vote one way or the other. Some said, they're not going to vote. I think now is a perfect time for black men to really make a statement. So even if you're not voting for Kamala, vote independent or something, but just to make sure that you're counted. You know what I mean? Because the narrative can always be changed to say, like, see, they don't come out and vote anyway. You know what I mean? Versus actually being counted and saying, okay, well, they purposely went out and did not vote because of, reasons A, B, and C, 1, 2, and 3. All right. Other thing I would tell brothers is it's going to come in red or green. Revolution is what I'm talking about. We're either going to pay for it or you're going to bleed for it, right? The brother earlier already talked about we're not in a position to bleed for it. The numbers are not there. So it means that we're going to have to fund it. In the spirit of funding it, that means making sure that our networks are tight, making sure that we are reaching out and helping other brothers, and I'll give a real quick story before I close out. I was on a call with the company. He might be listening right now because he's familiar with the space. I was on a call, a Teams call, and was taking care of business doing my normal function, and a little window popped up from a private chat, and it had one emoji. It had a wrench, and I looked. And I looked. I said, "Man, what is this?" And my channel is not big. I got 2,200 subscribers.
Yeah.
The channel's not big. A little wrench popped up, and then a question, and then question mark. And I put question mark. Who is it? Who is this?
Right.
And he said, "I'm a subscriber to your channel. He said you made me. He said you gave me the confidence to go out for this position." And I was a senior manager, and he was just a regular manager. So me and that brother exchanged information. Matter of fact, I called and checked on him maybe last week before, see how he was doing, and told him that even though I knew I was leaving the company, told them that, hey man, if you need anything, make sure you reach out. None of us do it by ourselves, right? So those are the things that I do in my real everyday life that I implore the brothers to do. That guy, the guy that you work with, that seems like he may be antisocial. Keep trying to break through to that brother, man. Build your network up. The other thing I will tell you, and then I'll close out here, your network is not going to always look like us. It's not going to always be just a whole horde of strong brothers. We're not there yet. So you're looking for the smartest minds you can find that are going to help put you in a position to win. Because once you win and you reach out and you are helpful to other brothers, we all win. I'll land my plane there.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming through, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, brother.
All right. Enjoy a cigar tonight, brother.
Yeah, I am.
Peace. Well, I got Black.
Hey, Doc.
I got it closing. I had to save you for last, man. Give us your thought on all of this.
Well, I all proper honoring to the last two brothers, because I think they both touched on something that I might, in my humble way, might provide. The brother was a Wrench Turner said that there are the revolution is green or red. There's one more color that revolution is. It's blue. It's the ocean. It's leaving. That's a third option. A third option is to leave. And I'm not saying to permanently leave, give up your American citizenship. That's not what I'm recommending. I am recommending that, when I look at what's happening with the presidency on both sides, which are very egregious in their own. I mean, think about, we're not really thinking about what has happened with, or what is happening with Kamala Harris. Not a single vote has been cast for this woman to be the nominee of the Democratic Party. You didn't vote for her, Doc. I didn't vote for her. No one voted for her. And just like that, she is the presumptive nominee with a war chest of several $100 million, and people coercing, people extorting and coercing family members into voting for her and supporting her and donating to her campaign. This is insane. I have been voting for over 40 years, right? I've never seen anything like this before. The first presidential election I voted for was 1980, Carter versus Reagan. I've never seen anything like this. This is not, we've entered a different phase in American politics or American society. This is we're going down a different road here. When you look at both candidates, we've never had anything like this. So I think the possibility of being able to leave must become a significant part of your portfolio of options, Jim. It must be. You must have some options outside of this country. Now, obviously, for us older men who are more abscond, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm too old to leave, basically. Other than the vacation, obviously. But for you younger men, I mean, you don't have as much here to be so deeply rooted, connected to, and your political system, your social political system, is telling you should not invest too much. You dare not invest too much in this, whatever this is and wherever direction this is going to go. So, hey, make yourself able to be able to get up out of here. And that's going to mean you address your palette of skills and talents and maybe develop a trade that's readily transferable across the world. If you are particularly skilled at woodworking and it's just some sort of habitual kind of thing for you, maybe that's something that works for you if you have to be, in Africa, for example. If you have some civil engineering or construction skills, I mean, really look and examine what you can do. Because from what I see of this election, to me, I view it as sort of like a turning point for Black men to really, we truly have no friends. And either presidential option offers potential havoc, like potential havoc for Black men in particular. And I think in some ways it would be worse if Kamala become president, because it would foster, it would harden the gynarchy to such a degree that a lot of us would be in trouble. I said earlier, I foresee a Kamala Harris presidency being very antagonistic towards what happens in this environment. And to the point in which you will be at risk, I believe, because the messaging here is too opposed to what they're going to want to do. And then they're going to be not as tolerant. They've already established within the current Biden administration or whatever, certain referencing to certain entities here being a part of some potential terroristic activity. Well, that's only going to ramp up under in my view, a Kamala Harris presidency. So I say, fashion yourself, prepare yourself to be able to move around, because it's going to get, regardless of whatever decision is made, it's going to get real serious for Black men around. And as always, thanks for having me, Don.
Well, thank you. But two things, I have seen men your age leaving, not necessarily as passport bros, but as expats, men who are retired in other countries. So there's still a way to do it. If you're not necessarily, trying to chase women in another country, there's another way, if you really need to leave. A lot of expats that are doing that. But the second thing is, when you do talk about passport bros and brothers leaving, it may not be a large number of brothers, but it has teeth, because the only men that can afford to are, for the most part, middle class and single. So, you know what I mean? So, and this is the threat of passport brothers. The more middle class single Black men you have leaving the country, it creates problems for some certain groups, especially in the Black community, right? And so,
if some brothers leave, you may get some brothers that's willing to pull the plugs on some marriages and get up out of here.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, because I think that's got to be a part of it too. I think there's got to be a risk, a real sense of the endangerment of the loss of Black men in order to reformulate the relationships, particularly and especially with Black women. I think as long as we stay comfortably and faithfully, we actually contribute to the problem. That's why I said earlier, we're in a system where the better we do, the more we enable the system to oppress us. And maybe the only way we can really change that is to some degree leave. That's what because the options otherwise seem quite limited.
Hey, I hear you. I appreciate you coming through, man. It's always
Thanks again, Doc.
whenever I see that hammer, I said, "Oh shit, it landed." I appreciate it, man.
Have a good night, Doc.
You too, man. Peace. All right. So this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and this is the crux of everything that I'm going to say in regard to presidential election. I'm going to keep coming back to this. I think we in many respects, we do not know what we've created here. I've not found any significant black male political agenda anywhere. And this isn't something that I sat down and wrote. This is something that the almost 40,000 subscribers on the Onyx Report channel pulled together. And most of the things listed on there are, I'd say about 98% of them came from brothers that said, I have an idea. This is what I went through. Here's a policy suggestion that will improve the quality of life of black males from newborn to into the grave. This is it. This is your political barometer. You want to measure whether or not a candidate is a good vote or a bad vote. If a candidate is the direction you want to go or not. This should be your barometer. What are your political interests? And if you can articulate them, great. If you don't know what they are, read this damn list. Google 18-point black male political agenda. You'll get right to it. It ain't but one. Ain't but one. But the point I keep coming back here is this is not something I'm proposing because I did it or not. I didn't. We did it. We wrote it, and we've established our own barometer, so you can determine how to measure any candidate, local, national, doesn't matter, whether or not they are willing to meet the needs of black males. And if they're not, then you know who you can cut and why. But more than that, even in the political debates that are going to be going on over the next couple months, we need to be able to articulate what our frustration, our disenchantment is with whomever is on the table in terms of the discussion. This should be how you're able to articulate what your concerns are, what your frustrations are, what needs to be done in order to get your vote. This is what needs to happen. We need to be able to literally sit out here and go point by point about the things that black males need, and challenge candidates to meet our needs if you want our votes. I mean, now look, what the brother says, over 9 million registered black male voters, about 3.5 million don't vote. Okay. I think I probably miscalculated because he did say it was 54% of 9 million. So that should be more than 3.5. That should be more than 4.5 million. But the point I'm getting at here is that may not seem like a large number until a vote gets real close. And when a vote gets real close, then every voice counts. Every vote counts. And if people want our votes on either side, and y'all know I'm an independent, I'll write in a candidate if I have to, if I really don't like what's on the table. And I haven't liked what's on the table in years. I'll tell you this, if I don't vote for someone or if I do, people ask me why, I can tell them why. And I want you to be able to tell them why. I want you to be able to master the discussion on what will get a black male vote. Because a lot of people don't know. Most people don't know. Hell, most black men don't know when we're asked what our political interests are. When we talk about being frustrated and disenchanted with whomever's running, when we're asked why, most can't say. We've not been trained to think about our political interests as a specific demographic. We've been trained to think about our political interests as black voters at best. But the problem is, every other demographic, even within the black community, thinks about itself. Black LGBT, black women, we can go down the list. They think about their own political interests. Black men are still talking about the black community, even to our own detriment, because there are probably some policies we need that others in the community will disagree with. And I can guarantee you, when you talk about family court reform, there's a number of those, but you need to be full-throated in being able to articulate what your political interests are. Even if there's not a candidate willing to entertain it, you can withhold your vote if that's what it comes down to. But at the very least, when asked why, you should be able to articulate why clearly. So that's what I'm trying to get at with this. Looking at the behavior of the Black Gynarchy, if that's any indicator of even what a portion of Kamala would do, I don't see much benefiting black men. other than bait and switch, other than performance, symbolism, pictures on websites, but any substantive policies, I don't really see it. But I'll tell you this, if her campaign can actually point out what benefits Black men will have with her political agenda, if it meets my needs, I'll vote for it. Whomever meets my needs, and that's what politics has always been at its core. Can your needs be met? I don't give a damn about the personalities. I don't give a damn about what people say about them. I don't care about whether or not people like them. I care about whether my needs are met. And if they're not met, they don't get my vote. So I want us to become more astute. I want us to become more politically mature. I want us to become more cutthroat about our political needs. And I want us to be unapologetic about it. So I hope you'll join me in that, and we'll keep going from here. I appreciate y'all coming through tonight. Hope y'all have a good night. Take it easy, and I will see y'all soon. All right. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.